What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto took back his power and denied the civilian council? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creation of this beautiful creation. A lone boy running through the forest with tears in his eyes. Looking back at what had transpired with Shinobi hot on his trail. He was used to running, but not like this. How could everything had gone from being so bad to worse? The only person to openly show affection to him, slain by another man of the same village. The thought was sickening to him. Iruka Amino, academy teacher of Konohagakure no Sato, was betrayed and killed by none other than Mizuki, fellow academy teacher. Naruto Uzumaki held on tightly to the scroll, with a few tears streaming down his face. Never so much had he held anyone in so much hate as he did Mizuki. Earlier that night, "It's because you are the nine-tailed fox," Mizuki exclaimed while pointing at Naruto. He began to spin a windmill shuriken in his hand and prepared to throw it. "And now, I'm going to do the entire village a favor," he said as he threw it. "Naruto, get down," Iruka screamed and Naruto covered up. Iruka, using whatever energy he had left, raced in front of the intended target, taking the shuriken into the base of his neck. He fell to the ground on top of Naruto, dead within seconds from the fatal wound. "Darn it, Iruka. Always getting in the way of what needs to be done." Mizuki fumed. He hadn't planned on Iruka protecting the boy, or anyone for that matter. He reached for another shuriken while Naruto laid there underneath Iruka, shocked. His eyes were widened. "Iruka-sensei?" he asked out loud. The man's eyes were blank, pain evident on his face. The shuriken stuck halfway into the base of his neck, halted by the rest of his neck. Naruto was in shock. Someone had died for him, had died to protect him. His eyes went blank and he was enveloped by red chakra. "No," he said. Mizuki was frozen in place by the chakra's appearance. "I knew it. You're the demon fox," he said. He tried to move his body, but the anger and hate rolling off of Naruto was physically restraining him. Such an aura of death around the young boy was shocking. "No. No, 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 no," he kept repeating while grabbing his head. Naruto's eyes widened as if something snapped in his mind. He let out a loud roar as his features became more feral. "No," he roared into the night as he gazed upon Mizuki. Something was off. It was as if he was possessed, but he still had that look as if he was there still. "You did this. This is all your fault. Mizuki. I'll never forgive you," he screamed as he raced forward at the young Chunin. "Crap, I can't move," Mizuki said. It was as if his body was paralyzed by the fox's chakra himself. Suddenly Naruto was upon him with his hand sharpened with claws. He swiped at Mizuki as he willed his body to raise his arms. The slash tore into his arms and knocked him through the tree he was standing on, smashing into the one behind it. As his back hit, he coughed up blood from the impact. "Shit, he's too fast," he said as the boy formed a hand seal. He couldn't have, he thought to himself. "Taju. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he said as multiple shadow clones surrounded Mizuki, each with the same feral look as Naruto himself. "Mizuki. I'm going to inflict on you the pain I've felt for many of years, 1,000 times over." The clones closed in on Mizuki as all he could do was scream into the night. With the body of Mizuki and Iruka on the ground and the scroll before him, Naruto picked it up. "The village will never acknowledge me. Not if they all know that I am the nine-tailed fox. But I can't be the fox. If I was, then." His thoughts trailed off. He looked at the scroll and noticed a few more jutsu within the scroll. "Shiki Fujin, Hachiman. These look pretty dangerous," he said as he looked through the scroll. "Edo, Tensai. Maybe I should try and learn these," he said as he copied some of the techniques down on a piece of paper. He wrote down some of the information and stuck it in his pocket. "But, I should at least return the scroll. After that, then I can train," he said as he continued to copy down techniques. After finishing, he rolled the scroll up and made his way back to the Hokage Tower. Present time. Naruto finally reached his destination. They'll probably want me dead for taking the scroll. As soon as he stepped down, multiple shinobi surrounded him with kunai pointing at all his vital spots as Hiruzen Sarutobi appeared. "Lower your weapons. I've seen everything that has happened and Naruto is innocent," he stated. A few shinobi refused to lower, wanting to take the boy's life then and there. But another command with a little bit of chakra laced into the air got the point across. Any shinobi who disobeyed this order would not live to tell the tale. Naruto dropped the scroll at the elder Hokage's feet. I'm sorry Grandpa, Naruto started choking on his words. Naruto, it's time that we talked, Hiruzen said while picking up the scroll. He placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and they walked into the mansion. Hiruzen directed Naruto to take a seat and Naruto did so while looking at the floor. It's time you know why I wanted this Saseret to be kept. Hiruzen started. 12 years ago, during the Kyuubi attack, the 4th Hokage fought the beast, sealing it away. He sealed it inside of you, Naruto. You are not the beast itself, just its container. Many of the villagers and some of the shinobi can't understand this, so they take their anger out on you. I enacted a law, that you were not to be informed of your burden nor should anyone speak of it out loud. But they have found ways around that law, and abuse it to hurt you. For this, I am truly sorry, but I am going to make a new law. Hiruzen inhaled and exhaled at that. But, I'm just a kid, how could they treat me like this? Why? Why do they hate me so much? Naruto thought to himself. He looked at the Hokage. So, the 4th, he just took me away from my family, he just took me from my home and sealed a demon in me? Naruto asked. He looked very betrayed. His idol and favorite of the Hokage's Sans Sarutobi had given him this burden. Why? Naruto yelled. Why would he hurt me like this? He wanted to know, and Sarutobi thought about it for a second. There's no other way around this I suppose, he thought before speaking. Because, Naruto. Who else would a Hokage trust to handle a burden other than his own son? He finished. Naruto's eyes widened at that statement. The 4th, was his father. His son? Naruto was shocked. The villagers were harming the legacy of the man they praised. Oh, the irony. A range of emotions flew through the young shinobi's face. Anger, rage, resentment, hate, sadness, hopelessness, then understanding. And the most shocking to the elder Hokage, finalization. As if Naruto himself had come to terms with the situation. I see, Naruto said. Grandpa. I'm going to go home and sleep now. Can we finish talking in the morning? He asked. The elder Hokage nodded but asked Naruto before he left. Do you want that law to disappear, Naruto? He asked. Naruto looked back before exiting and silently spoke. That law has done nothing but made my life hell. I'll never have a normal life anyways. Do what you will with the law, it won't help me either way. He said. Hiruzen took out a headband and tossed it to Naruto. You've at least earned this, Naruto. Hiruzen sighed as Naruto exited after catching the headband and thanking the elder Hokage. These people don't know what hell they've unleashed. That boy. When he puts his mind to something he's determined. At Naruto's apartment, he walked into his somewhat messy home. He took out the paper he wrote the techniques on and began to get to work. He had saw a few things in the scroll that had some details of the techniques and how to use them and what uses they could be used for. He read that the Kage Bunshin could be used to gather intelligence and learn things. He formed a single shadow clone and had it read the paper to test it out, and once the clone dispelled, he memorized everything on the paper. This will be useful for the time to come. I wonder what else I could do with clones. Naruto thought. He removed the headband from his pocket and began to think. I once wanted them to respect me, and all they do is hate me. I'll never understand these people. He said out loud. Maybe it's time I wisened up. I mean, honestly, not even Sakura-chan is interested in me. Every fawn's over that Uchiha kid. But I'm the son of the 4th Hokage. No one even knows. Maybe it's time I stopped messing around and got serious about my life. He thought to himself. He decided that he would have to become smarter, think things through, keep his emotions in check, and trust no one. Maybe a few leaf shinobi he could trust, but not the ones who have been cruel to him before. He formed a few Kage Bunshin. I want you all to go over to the library and pick up a few books. Read as many as you can and dispel once you've read as many as you can. If you need to transform into someone else as to not raise suspicion. Maybe a group of shinobi trying to study up at night or something, whatever works for you. Read up on history, tactics, and manners as well. He ordered the clones before crawling into the bed. The clones left with a nod and did as they were told. In the morning, once I've memorized all this information, I should try and get some practical use out of it. But for now, he thought as tears streamed down his eyes. I don't even think I want to live anymore. He thought. He cried himself to sleep that night as the clones did their job. After the dispelled Naruto passed out from the influx of information into his mind. There he would have a meeting with the most deadliest creature to ever walk the earth. The academy. Naruto walked into the room. He wore his headband around his head with his orange suit still on. Naruto decided not to make any drastic changes as to alert people, so changes in clothing and appearances was not a good idea for now. Maybe down the line when people got to know the new him he would, but for now, he would just stay calm and act. Hey Naruto. What are you doing here? You failed the academy exam. Don't tell me you're trying to act tough with that fake headband on. Kiba roared loudly, now with attention all on the Naruto side. Wait. Naruto. Sighing, this is new. Naruto looked at Kiba and spoke calmly and quietly. Because I have a lot of chakra, I can't do the clone technique. I have way too much chakra to control, so they taught me another form of the clone technique, and since I'm able to use it up to par, they allowed me to pass. Naruto said. Kiba nodded in understanding. Naruto always did have a lot of chakra and energy, so he decided not to push the topic any further. Word about the law being appealed by the third himself had not reached the kids yet, so none of them knew what Naruto housed. Things were quiet for a while until two Kunoichi decided that racing into the classroom so they can claim their stake to sit next to Sasuke would be a good idea. Out of the way Ino pig, I won this time. Sakura exclaimed. No way forehead, my foot was at least 1/10 of an inch ahead of yours. The only way you could have beaten me was if you stuck your forehead out. Ino exclaimed back. Naruto took a seat next to Sasuke and placed his head down. He still had a migraine and his head was pounding. The loud noises weren't helping either. He still had a bit of a crush on Sakura, but he wasn't in the mood to hear her screaming with Ino. Naruto. What are you doing next to my Sasuke? Sakura growled. Would you like to sit here, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked as Sasuke's eyes got wide. No, 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 no. Sasuke kept thinking over and over. Nah Naruto. You'd willingly let me sit with Sasuke? Sakura stated shocked. At that point the new teacher walked in. Alright class, take a seat and we'll begin squad placement. You two, grab a seat, he said while pointing at Sakura and Ino. Naruto sat back down beside Sasuke, who let loose a sigh. Ino and Sakura sat together and were upset but were a little bothered by Naruto's calm attitude. Lost in their mind, they didn't hear the squads until Squad 7. Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki. Your sensei will be Kakashi Hitaki. Squad 8. Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame. Team 9 is still in circulation from last year. Squad 10. Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, Shikamaru Nara. That's it for squads, dismissed. He said as the kids got up and walked out. Sasuke-kun. Sakura walked up and tried to talk to Sasuke. You want to have lunch with me? We can get to know each other better. Sasuke walked off without even looking back. Sasuke. Naruto looked at Sasuke's retreating back. We should have lunch together and get to know each other. If we know more about each other, we won't get in the other's way and can plan out things together. Naruto exclaimed. Sasuke's eyebrow arched a little as he thought about it. Fine. I don't like people getting in my way, Sasuke said as he walked on. Naruto and Sakura followed behind while Sakura eyed Naruto. This Naruto is totally different from the one before, Sakura thought. They ate lunch together while the silence began to become annoying. Sakura broke the silence first. Naruto. What's so different about you? Why have you changed? She asked. Naruto visibly flinched. I learned something about myself. Something that you're going to find out very soon. And that information caused me to want to change myself. He finished. They couldn't understand what the information was, but they definitely wanted to find out. They walked to the next classroom as Naruto sat still. He actually sat still and waited. 2 hours came and their sensei finally showed up. My first impression of you. Kakashi started. I've seen corpses with more energy. Meet me on top of the roof in 5 minutes, he said while disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruto walked up and was followed by Sakura and Sasuke. Alright, let's introduce ourselves. Why don't you start there with the pink hair? Kakashi asked. Sensei, why don't you show us how to do it so we can get the general idea, she asked. Okay. My name is Kakashi Hitaki. My likes. I don't feel like telling you that. My dislikes. Not really important. Dreams for the future. Never really thought about that. Goals. He seemed as if he was off in though for the moment. Okay, your turn. All he really told us was his name, they all thought. My name is Sakura Haruno. I like flowers and reading and… She blushed a little here. My dislikes are mainly just Ino and bugs. My goal for the future. Are kind of private. She blushed furiously after looking at Sasuke. Okay blonde, you're up next. Naruto was silent for a few seconds. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like to train. I dislike judgmental people. My goals for the future is to show the world how strong I really am. He said. Kakashi's eye almost widened but he caught himself. That was unexpected. From the folders I read on him. He's supposed to be hyperactive and unfocused. He seems too calm, collected, almost like a seasoned shinobi. He thought to himself. Alright, your turn, he said pointing to Sasuke. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. I don't like anything in particular, and I dislike a lot of things. What I have is not a dream, but an ambition. I plan to restore my clan to its former glory, and kill a certain someone. He finished. Kakashi thought for a moment but decided to see what this team had. Alright, tomorrow we will do a survival exercise. You can call it the real genin test. This test will have a 66.6% chance of failure. Meet me at training ground 7 at 7 a.m., and don't be late. Oh and don't eat breakfast, you might hurl. He finished as he left Sakura standing wide-mouthed, and Sasuke and Naruto with notable scowls on their face. I'm going to go train. Naruto and Sasuke said at the same time. They left Sakura as she watched the boys leave on their own paths. She looked at their backs and turned to go home. Training ground 7. Light stretched over the land as Naruto finished eating an apple. He had decided to eat more fruits and vegetables to help his body grow and develop. How he had acquired a fresh apple was simple. He picked it off a tree. Sasuke appeared followed by Sakura afterwards. Naruto laid on the ground and closed his eyes. I have a feeling our sensei will be late. You might want to catch a bit of rest. Also here, Naruto said throwing them some apples. Eat this for a quick snack. It'll help you get through the day. He said as Sasuke took a bite. Because Sasuke did, Sakura followed suit and ate the apple. 2 hours later Kakashi arrived. Rise and shine my little students. Today's the day we start your exam. He said removing an alarm clock and setting it. You have 1 hour to get these bells from me. Those who get a bell pass, whoever doesn't get a bell will be sent back to the academy. Come at me with the intent to kill, or you won't get the bells. You may begin when I say so. He said as the genin took a stance. Begin, he said as they all dashed off. Well, they're all hidden well, that's for sure. What in the… I can only sense 2 of them. Where's Naruto? He said. He didn't feel anything underground, he didn't hear any steps. It was as if he vanished. Suddenly his senses were flooded with chakra. This chakra, he said. The chakra put Kakashi on edge. He hadn't felt that chakra in a long time. A single mass appeared in front of Kakashi and lunged at him. Kakashi took a stance and blocked the incoming shinobi. Suddenly Kakashi felt something tugging on his waist and launched an elbow to the back of the head of the person. Then a puff of smoke surrounded Kakashi and 2 blonde-haired shinobi rushed at Kakashi. Clever. Use the smoke to draw my attention and cloud my vision. He said, but you'll have to do better than. Then he saw what the clones were holding. 2 kunai with explosive tags. Shit, Kakashi said as he leapt back forming hand seals for a substitution technique quickly. The clones exploded blowing apart the logs as Naruto sat in his tree watching from above. He substituted. So this is the skill of a Junin. I can't compare with his abilities without relying on the fox's power. And even then only a little. Naruto thought. Sasuke watched and was impressed. Sakura was floored. Naruto had just gone toe-to-toe with a Junin for a short amount of time. That was impressive by genin standards. Sasuke looked around for Kakashi as he jumped down from the tree he was in. That was close, Kakashi said out loud. Kakashi pulled out a book and began to read. Now to just wait. He'll obviously try it again and this time I won't underestimate him. Kakashi was in alert. He only took out the book to look preoccupied. Sasuke threw a load of shuriken at Kakashi and manipulated them to curve around to hit Kakashi's unsuspecting body. The form of Kakashi faded away to reveal a log and Sasuke took off. Shit, He knows my location, he said as Kakashi appeared in front of him. Yeah, I do. Sasuke kept running at Kakashi and launched a right hand straight which Kakashi caught, followed by jumping up and bringing his left leg up to deliver a spinning kick to Kakashi's head which was caught by the other hand of Kakashi. Sasuke then tried to grab a bell as Kakashi pushed Sasuke away and slid back getting distance. Sasuke landed on his feet as he began a few hand signs. Suddenly someone snuck up from behind and grabbed Kakashi placing him in a full Nelson. Now Sasuke. A voice called out and Sasuke launched a fireball at Kakashi and whatever was grabbing him. Kakashi jumped into the air with the large weight on his back and avoided the fireball barely as his foot got burned a little. Damn it, he thought. As he landed something was off as he didn't hear the jingling of bells. Suddenly a poof of smoke later and one scowling Naruto holding up two bells in his hands and Kakashi made the conclusion. Very clever, he thought. Here, he said as he threw the bells to Sasuke and Sakura. I don't really need Genin this time. And a little bit of class would do me some more good so I don't mind going back to the academy. He said as he began to walk off. Naruto. No one's going back to the academy, you all pass. Kakashi said as he smiled at the Genin. Naruto was confused. Huh? He said. The test is about teamwork. That combination you pulled off with Sasuke was very good. Although Sakura didn't really do much, your teamwork with Sasuke was flawless. Naruto rose up a hand. Actually, she's the one who threw the kunai which cut the strings off your bell when I grabbed you. He said as Sakura scratched the back of her head. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have gotten the bells off of you. While you were fighting my clones I went and looked for the others and gave them instructions. In fact some of the shuriken that Sasuke threw were my shadow clones. So, it really was a group effort. Kakashi was floored. They had executed a plan to get the bells off of him on their own. This team had potential. Alright, we'll meet here tomorrow at the same time and we'll do our first mission. I expect great things from you Team 7 inches Kakashi said as he disappeared in a puff of smoke. I'm going to go get some food. You guys want to come with me? Naruto asked. He didn't want to get attached but after a long day of fighting, he was hungry. Sure. I could use a bite to eat. Sasuke said surprising everyone. I'll go too. Sakura said. The team walked off towards Ichiraku Ramen. Besides, it was a great day to celebrate. For now, a few days ago, Naruto had just finished channeling chakra into a slip of paper he got from a teacher at the academy. He had asked about chakra natures and was surprised when one of the shinobi actually answered and helped him. They told him to channel chakra into the paper which he did and it split in half. Wind chakra. This could be useful in my training, he said to himself. He thanked the teacher and left the classroom. He headed to the Hokage's tower and asked to speak with the Hokage about an urgent matter. His usual story. The receptionist already knew the code and let the young boy through. He knocked on the door and the Hokage allowed him in. Naruto my boy, what can I do for you? Hiruzen asked. I was wondering if you know where I could get some scrolls on wind techniques. I found out I have a wind element. Naruto explained. Asuma is a wind type, he had a few scrolls a while back and I kept them around here somewhere. He thought before going to a drawer and removing a few scrolls. Here you go, a few C and B ranked wind techniques. But you should seek Asuma out to learn a few wind training exercises. Hiruzen informed Naruto. Naruto nodded and took off to find Asuma. Lucky for him, he was able to find the man out on a walk with Kurenai. Asuma-sensei, Hokage-sama told me that I could ask you for a few wind training exercises. Do you have any that you could teach me? Naruto asked politely. Asuma thought about it for a moment then gave Naruto his apartment address telling him to meet him there the next day. Sure enough Naruto showed up ready to learn and Asuma was happy to comply. Naruto got the basic idea of training and got used to it enough to understand what he was supposed to do. He finished the basic chakra training on his own which was to coat a kunai with wind chakra and increase its cutting power. When Asuma had shown Naruto his trench knives and flying swallow technique, Naruto had asked if he knew where he could get chakra reactive weapons like his. Asuma gave him the name of a weapons shop and sure enough Naruto went to the shop. He was able to work out a deal with the owner who was happy to make the young ninja a pair of claws that were similar to Asuma's trench knives. The man told Naruto that they would be ready within a few weeks. Naruto thanked the man, paying in advance and taking the receipt. Naruto then went to the training fields to try and master his wind element. Naruto had the clones work on Master Wind Element for the whole day. He himself meditated and cleared his mind so that he wouldn't get too fatigued from the training. He had learned that meditation and a calmed mind helped him adjust to the training better. He did the D-ranked missions in the morning and did the training at night with the clones. As Naruto realized it was time for them to get a C-ranked mission as they had reached their quota, he had his team of Kage Bunshin focus on being able to perform Edo Tensei. He had been using shadow clones as the sacrifice, and by doing that he knew one thing. He never wanted to be a sacrifice for an Edo Tensei. He knew its inner workings inside and out, and all he had left was to figure out a way to control whatever he summoned. Naruto laid in his bed that night and began to think back on all the information his clones had gathered for him on sealing. He knew it'd be a long night. Present time outside the gates of Konoha. Naruto and his team had just set off. Naruto knew that there was other places far off, but he had never been outside the village. He was taking it all in at the moment and sincerely enjoyed the time with his teammates. Things were going well so far until they passed a puddle. Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi noticed the puddle and knew that it didn't belong there. It hadn't rained in weeks. Naruto and Sasuke mentally preared themselves. Suddenly two shinobi appeared from the puddle and wrapped a chain around Kakashi. Naruto and Sasuke, noticing that Kakashi had already performed substitution, knew they could let loose on the men. Sasuke formed a few hand signs while Naruto created two shadow clones. When Sasuke finished his hand seals and released a ball of fire upon the two, Naruto's first shadow clone thrusted his hands out and a gust of wind increased and fanned the flames to engulf the two shinobi. This didn't happen as they both broke apart their chain and scattered out of the path of the combined technique. They made a rush for the bridge builder, which was being guarded by Sakura. Sakura brought her kunai up to defend, but the attacker was intercepted by Naruto, who had caught the man's extended arm with his hands. Naruto clenched tightly, channeling some of the fox's power to augment his strength enough to break the arm, and pulled the man inward for a brutal punch to the face which knocked him out cold. Sasuke launched a vicious kick to the other shinobi's stomach and elbowed him in the back of the head, knocking him down and restrained him with ninja wire. Once they were captured, Kakashi appeared and looked at the client. "Tazuna-san, I think it's time we talked." Tazuna paled a little bit. These kids were good, and if they were that good, he was terrified of how good their teacher was. After Kakashi finished talking to Tazuna, the team decided it was the best idea to help the Wave Village out. They continued on their path until they got to where they needed to cross. They realized that it was a little misty out, but none of them were worried about the mist. They kept their senses sharp, worried about what would be in the mist waiting. As they reached the location, Sasuke suddenly sensed something in the bushes and threw a kunai, barely missing a rabbit. The rabbit's fur caught Naruto as suspicious, and his thoughts were finalized as Kakashi called for everyone to get down. A giant sword flew overhead, embedding itself into a tree. A man then appeared on top of the handle and looked back at the group. Well, I didn't know Kakashi became a babysitter. This'll be fun," he said as Kakashi glared at the man. "Zabuza Momochi, what are you doing here?" he asked just for confirmation. He already knew someone must have hired the man and was formulating a battle plan based on the information he knew about Zabuza. As Zabuza spoke, Naruto and his team crowed the bridge builder in a tight formation. Naruto was facing the direction of the bridge builder, with Sasuke looking southeast and Sakura looking southwest. Kakashi lifted up his headband, revealing a Sharingan as Zabuza formed a few hand signs and the mist thickened. Naruto pushed his hands out and, pumping a lot of chakra, blew away the mist. This allowed Kakashi to track Zabuza's movements and stop his assault. Kakashi used his kunai to clash with Zabuza's sword, a feat which was impressive in itself, speaking highly of Kakashi's strength. Kakashi then pushed off of Zabuza, launching the kunai at the man, then formed a few hand signs. The kunai was deflected by Zabuza's blade as Kakashi used the distraction to form a few water clones he copied from Zabuza. The Kakshi clones slashed through Zabuza with a kunai, causing it to turn to water. Zabuza then revealed himself from behind a tree and with quick speed beheaded the clone, turning it to water. Kakashi used this time to launch a fireball at Zabuza, who jumped back onto the top of the water and began forming hand signs quickly. Kakashi copied it as quickly as Zabuza performed it, and a vortex of water formed around the two and clashed into each other, creating a large wave. Sasuke and Naruto watched the battle in awe and tried to focus on Zabuza, who was lost in the battle himself. Kakashi made a small mistake launching himself next to Zabuza on the water, who, after he launched a quick jab, leaned back while forming hand signs and thrusted his hands forward, capturing Kakashi in the orb of water. "Well, looks like you've been slipping, Kakashi," Zabuza said, a little out of breath. The battle wasn't going how he wanted and he was forced to fight all out against the Junin. If his mist technique had worked, he could have formed water clones to help him get to this point. Kakashi looked at his students. "Take Tazuna and get out of here," Kakashi called out to his students. Naruto thought for a moment and realized that if they ran, they'd just die anyhow. So Naruto did what he did best. He improvised. He formed a few clones and had one of them throw a few shuriken to the right of Zabuza while the other formed his own set of seals. "Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," the clone said. This caused the shuriken to turn into a wall of shuriken that would hit only Zabuza. Zabuza had to release his hand from the orb and move out the way, or his whole left side would have been pelted by shuriken. This allowed Kakashi to set himself up right and face Zabuza head on again. Zabuza began to backpedal. He had used up a lot of chakra. He was getting tired and Kakashi was on his last leg as well. He could risk going into a ninjutsu war with the man with 1000 ninjutsu, but that in itself sounded suicidal. So he did what every great ninja to ever survive a battle did. He retreated. Kakashi returned back to Tazuna, seeing as the hostile target had disengaged the client. He placed his headband back over his eye and fell to a knee. "That took a lot of chakra out of me," he said while resting. He didn't overdo it with his Sharingan too much, but he was close to drained. Quick thinking Naruto, "Where'd you learn the Shuriken Shadow Clone technique?" he asked. Naruto waved him off. "I recreated it after toying around with the Shadow Clone techniques. I can make shadow clones of a lot of different things," he said as if it was nothing. Kakashi was impressed. After helping Kakashi walk and Tazuna escorting them to the house, oh what irony, they decided that rest was in order. They had made it to the location, now all they had to do was protect Tazuna while he built the bridge. How hard could that be? Naruto was currently sitting atop a tree. Why? Because Kakashi had thought that teaching them tree climbing validates his training. Not to mention because he already knew it and Sakura mastered it quickly. He had opted to stay behind and help Sasuke, who claimed he didn't need it, and still doesn't, master it as well. Naruto explained to him the basic principle of what the lesson was to do. Help teach him control. Naruto had already mastered his chakra control using the shadow clone technique. So while Sasuke ran up the tree, Naruto monitored while Kakashi rested, and Sakura guarded Tazuna. Naruto decided to read over his sealing scrolls and practice his calligraphy. He knew that one brush stroke off could change a seal from good seal to explosive nuke, and he wanted to make sure his writing was perfected. After validating that it was acceptable, he began to work on the practice seals. The first seals would just make a paper change different colors depending on what seal was written on it. He processed this for a few minutes before moving on to the next steps and so on. Around nighttime, Sasuke had finally reached the top and was exhausted. Naruto had used up a little bit of chakra practicing his seals, so they decided a little rest was good for the both of them. They each got to sit down and eat dinner at Tazuna's house. The meal was cooked by his daughter, Tsunami. She did the best with what she had, and they didn't complain. They were just grateful to be fed. But there was one boy there who wasn't happy at all about the ninja's arrival. "Why do you try?" Inari asked the ninja at the table. "Gato's too powerful, he's just going to kill you all," he said. Inari. Tsunami started trying to scold him, but Naruto rose up a hand. "Is something wrong, Inari?" Naruto asked. He wanted to get to the bottom of the boy's foul attitude. Deep inside it was pissing him off. It wasn't like the hate-filled glares he got at home, but it made him uncomfortable. "Why are you even trying to stop Gato? You're just going to die like the rest if you challenge him," Inari stated again, clear in his resolve. Naruto stood up and walked over to Inari. "I hate to tell you this, but Gato's not that powerful at all. If it wasn't for his money, he probably wouldn't be able to do anything to you or this village. We're pretty good ninja, and I'm sure we can handle it." Naruto said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. Inari snatched his shoulder away with a glare. And what would you know? You're a ninja, you probably had a very easy life anyways. What would you know about true pain and suffering? Inari snapped. For a brief moment Naruto's chakra released itself, causing a small crack in the windows and some of the glass. Naruto reeled himself in before he got too carried away. He calmed himself down and gave Inari a stare that almost made the boy cry and beg for his mom. You have your mother and a grandfather who love you. You're eating food that was cooked just for you. You're not sleeping on the streets or having to worry about if that guy over there is going to kill you just because you looked at him. As far as I'm concerned, you live a pretty swell life. I'd give almost anything to have what you have. Current situation and all. Think about that for a little while, he said as he walked out the door, shutting it calmly. He needed some fresh air and something to take his mind off the pain. Open field. Naruto was laying on his back gazing at the stars. A lot of thoughts going through his mind. That anger he felt. It almost made him want to snap the boy's neck. That wasn't him. At least, he prayed it wasn't him. He closed his mind and entered his thoughts. He entered into a cage with the word seal over it. Behind it a mass of red fur was entrapped. Kurama. Don't tell me you tried to take over again. I thought we came to an agreement, he said, knocking on the cage door. The fox behind it grinned. I have no idea what you're talking about, child, he said. Naruto chuckled a little bit. You aren't a very good liar. So what is it you want this time? He asked as the fox sat up a little bit. It's boring in here. I have to entertain myself somehow, Kyuubi explained. Naruto and the fox weren't really on good terms, but they had an understanding. On the night Naruto had sent his clones to the library to study up and knocked himself out with the information overload, Naruto and the Kyuubi spoke face to face. The conversation between them was one that would have knocked any hardcore shinobi veteran off their feet. To see a young boy of 12 years old backtalk a giant demonic fox was hilarious. Weeks ago, you idiotic brat. You almost went brain dead there with that overload of information. What would I do with a host that can't move? The body wouldn't be any good to me, he said. Naruto felt the chakra of the beast and was floored. Why, you're the Kyuubi, Naruto said. He was terrified. A being of massive chakra like that inside of him was still new to him. The concept was even newer. Maybe you're not so dumb after all, the fox replied. I called you here to berate you for such a stupid move and almost damning me to a life inside an empty shell. But while I have you here, I might as well try and eat you. It's been a while since I've had a decent meal. Maybe you'll make a good appetizer. The fox responded with a snarl. Oh no, I'm not becoming anyone's meal. You're the reason I'm so hated. You're the reason my family is dead. You're the reason everything in my life is going downhill, Naruto said while walking over to the seal. He placed his hands up on the seal and began to peel it away. When I get in there, I'm going to rip you a new one, you stupid fox, he said. At the last moment his hand was grabbed by another's. Let me go, let me go, Naruto screamed while turning to launch a punch and was shocked at who it was. Now what kind of father would I be if I let my son face off against the world's most powerful demon? Minato replied. Yondaime. You're lucky this cage is here to prevent me from eating you where you stand, Kyuubi said. Quiet, you giant furball, I'm here to speak with my son, he replied. The fox laid its head down. Watch it, Blondie, the fox said. Dad, Naruto responded. He was still holding his fist in the air, wanting to launch the punch. Yeah, son, I'm here, he said, only to receive a hard punch to the stomach. You bastard, how could you seal that thing inside me? He said, pointing to the fox. Hey, yeah, giant ear, right here, the fox replied, sounding a little hurt. Why don't we talk about this somewhere else? Minato said as he snapped his finger and the whole area became white. Naruto, there's something I was hoping to tell you. So I need you to listen closely. I'll explain everything afterwards, Minato said. Minato told Naruto everything. He told him about the battle with the fox. How him and Kushina fought alongside each other to battle the fox and protected Naruto with their bodies to seal the fox away. Naruto, it's up to you to stop that shinobi. He's a dangerous ninja who will stop at nothing to destroy the village. Even I couldn't stop him. That's why I sealed the fox in you. Because you're the only one who can protect the village, Minato finished. Naruto looked shell-shocked. How do you know I even want to save the village? He asked Minato. Minato looked shocked for a minute but knew why. I know what they did to you is wrong, Naruto, but you have to rise against it. Form new bonds, don't let this settle on you too long. Minato tried to give his son hope. I don't even know if I want to save the village. There are a few people I'd save, but I couldn't save the village. Not after all it's done to me. Naruto spoke. Minato looked hurt, but he understood why. Naruto, you're my son. I'll love you no matter what road you take, but true strength comes when you protect something that is important to you. Hatred solves nothing, remember that, Minato said. He began to fade away. Well, my time is up. Train hard, and say hello to your mother for me, he said as he faded completely away and Naruto returned to the fox's cage. He looked at the fox and turned to him. Tell me everything you know about that night, he said with a silent glare. The fox couldn't have been prouder at the hate within that glare. The fox told him everything. How he was controlled with the Sharingan, impaling Naruto's parents, his organs. Everything. Naruto thought for a moment. So, is your name actually Kyuubi then, or do you have a real name? Naruto asked. Kurama. My name is Kurama. The fox replied. Alright Kurama, I have an offer for you. You're going to give me any amount of chakra I ask for. In return, if, and only if, my goals are accomplished, I'll let you out. You will not try and possess me, and I'll give you access to my senses and even allow you to view the world from my eyes. This'll will entertain you enough, Naruto said while crossing his arms. The fox looked a little bit shocked that a young boy would try to command him, but he realized that if he cooperated, he'd have his freedom soon enough. Alright, we'll see how this goes, he said. Current time. Naruto looked at the fox. Alright, really what do you want? He asked. You need to train to use my chakra properly. Since I promised not to try and take over, I don't have to influence you. But you do have to train for control over my tails of chakra. And no amount of clones will help you master that boy. The fox mocked. So what do you want me to do? He asked. Find someone that could help you control my power. I could teach you how, but it's more fun to watch you work, the fox said. Naruto gave a deadpan look. Fine. I'm going to get some rest then. Naruto finished. He disappeared from his mind as he closed his eyes. He had a lot of researching to do. A current clash of fates was happening on the bridge. Naruto, who had finished off 2 samurai trying to have their way with Tsunami, was making his way towards the battlefield. He had made an order for the clones to surround the house and protect them at all costs. As he sped off, he came across the exit to the forest and in front of the bridge. He could see Zabuza and Kakashi fighting, but the mist was very thick, so he could only see the sparks and the giant blade moving. He formed a single shadow clone and told it to blow away the mist. As the clone nodded, it used up a lot of its chakra to blow away the mist and remain hidden. Once the clone did that, Naruto came out and looked at the dome that was there. From the looks of it, Sasuke was having trouble in the dome. Naruto wanted to rush in and save the boy, but he had no idea how things were going. So he did all that he could do. He formed enough shadow clones to hit each mirror, and had them each form a volatile seal. This was his version of the explosive tags. After messing around with seals for a while, he found out that if a tag wasn't made correctly, it could explode very well. The clones did as instructed, and on each mirror, there was a seal. Naruto formed a ram seal and the dome shattered instantly, launching Hiku out of the mirrors and onto the ground. That took a lot of chakra, Naruto said, panting. He was now dipping into the fox's chakra and he had to be careful how much he used. Sasuke had been caught in the inferno of tags, but the ice dome had provided some protection. He wasn't burnt at all, but his ears were ringing like hell. The force had knocked him to his knees and he was slowly getting up a little dizzy. Hey, warn someone next time you do that, Sasuke said. If I had, that ninja would have figured out my idea, and probably escaped the mirrors. He explained. Haku's mask had shattered and the right side of his face had burnt plastic in it. The back of his kimono was burnt severally. Hiku couldn't even move. Damn it, Hiku said. Zabuza, I failed you, he said. Naruto walked over to Hiku. You mind telling me why you're with the eyebrowless freak over there? Naruto asked while squatting down. Hiku narrowed his eyes. Do not talk about Zabuza-sama that way, he finished. Hiku rolled over a little and tried to get up, but Naruto kicked him in his ribs, sending him rolling. Ya no. Hurting women isn't my forte. But to really put a number on Sasuke like that, I can't take any chances. Naruto said while scratching himself. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Why are you with Zabuza? Naruto said. Haku decided to tell Naruto his story. The fact that he started with, when I was a young boy, made Naruto's eyes widened. He's just like me, except he got picked up by the wrong person. He finished his thought. Alright, don't move. I'll try to persuade Kakashi not to kill Zabuza but mainly sustain him. He then heard the crackling of lightning. Might be a little too late on that, Naruto. Sasuke said. I did say I'd try. Hey Kakashi, he yelled. Aim for his shoulder, he finished yelling. What the hell is wrong with Naruto? I should finish this guy now. Maybe he has a good reason. Fine, shoulder it is. He finished thinking as he charged. He lunged the Reikiri into Zabuza's arm, causing it to hang limply. He targeted his sword using arm so he wouldn't be a threat to them now. With medical treatment he'd recover, but he wasn't getting it down in wave. Zabuza fell to the ground and couldn't lift his sword. Damn you Kakashi, you should have just killed me. He said, quit your whining. Naruto wanted me to incapacitate you, so he must have a reason. He said as ninja wire came out his sleeve binding Zabuza. Clapping could be heard across the bridge. Well done. Al thought, if Zabuza couldn't beat you, then I guess he is a little demon after all. Gato said while snarling at them. Kill them all, none leave this bridge alive. He said, any whoever kills Zabuza gets the pay I was going to give him, he finished. Sasuke and Naruto stepped forward. Got any plans? He asked Naruto. Burn M. Naruto said. Sasuke formed a few hand signs and Naruto gathered a lot of chakra. Kaden. Ryuka no jutsu, he yelled. The fire headed towards the men. They realized how wide it was going. Once the fire began to hit, Naruto released his wind technique, fanning the flames. The amount of fire took out a large portion of the bridge. Naruto removed a few soldier pills from his pocket and passed one to Kakashi and Sasuke, taking one for himself. With a small boost in chakra for them, they ran off into the flames with kunai and began to slash through the remaining men. Cleanup was easy. They only left Gato, who tried to escape but was caught by Sasuke with ninja wire. Naruto walked up to Gato and knelt down to his eye level since he was on the floor sitting. You know, they'll kill you, right? Naruto said. Gato's eyes widened. Please, spare me, I'll give you anything you want. He begged. Anything? Naruto asked. Pay for the bridge to be completed, and return the fortune you took from this village back to them. And the rest of your money goes to me. Consider this payment for return of your life. Or would you rather we just hand you over and let them kill you? Oh, and your company goes to Tazuna. I'm sure the man could put it to good use. He finished. Gato realized it'd break him. He'd have no money, he'd have no power. But he'd be alive. Gato quickly agreed and he was taken away by Naruto. Kakashi and Sasuke looked at him while he left and wondered where he was taking the short man. I'm going to follow Naruto and keep an eye on him. You guys stay here and guard these two. They can't move and should be no issue. Kakashi said. He made a single shadow clone to stay back and take care of them just in case and left after Naruto. Gato and Naruto arrived at Gato's hideout. Gato was performing the paperwork for the transfer of the funds and was emptying his bank accounts. Naruto gathered up the deeds to the company and other useful objects Gato had. Afterwards, Naruto collected the papers in a briefcase Gato had and thanked him for his business. Gato began to sigh when a kunai was pressed against his throat. But, I thought we had a deal? Gato said. I'm a shinobi, deals mean nothing to me. You're a threat and must be eliminated. This is for Inari's father, he said as he slit Gato's throat. He picked up a lighter and gas and poured the gas on the floor, leading a trail to the door. He lit the lighter and threw it over his shoulder, setting the gas ablaze and burning the place down. As he exited with his briefcase, Kakashi arrived. What was that about Naruto? Kakashi asked. Let's just say life in Wave is going to get pretty sweet. Naruto said. He made his way back to the village and had the people gather around. Each and every one of you have nothing to fear. Gato is no more. In this briefcase is the fortune he took from you. And for you, Tazuna, here. He said, handing the man the deed to Gato's company. Tazuna's eyes went wide. Naruto. I can't take this? He said. Gato was the biggest shipping company in the world. After Naruto was going to take some money out of the accounts, they could make that money back easily. You've worked hard for this bridge to Zuna. You deserve to have the company of the man who took your son-in-law away from you." He finished. He closed the briefcase as he began to walk back. "I'm heading back to the house for rest. Hope to see you guys there," he said. He disappeared in a puff of smoke and made it back to the house. His clones had protected Tsunami and Inari and made sure no hostiles got past the line. He knocked on the door and Inari answered and promptly hugged Naruto. "Thank you for saving me and my mother," he said. Naruto patted Inari on the head. "It was nothing. I'm going to lie down now," he said as he made it to the couch and laid down. He fell asleep within moments. Kakashi ordered Sasuke and Sakura to return back to the house and check on Naruto to get rest. Within a few hours the whole gang was back at Tsunami's house where Naruto was fast asleep. Team 7 was making its return to Wave in silence. Not much had to be said. They had went through a life-changing mission in Wave. For Sasuke and Naruto, they just got their first kills. Naruto accepted his easier than Sasuke did for the simple fact that once you realize that as a tailed beast container, bloodshed would follow you for a long time. Once checking in at the front gate, they made their way to the Hokage mansion. It was time to report on their mission, and Kakashi was not looking forward to this moment. He told the story of how his team single-handedly uprooted a major multi-million-dollar company and handed it over to people who could better use the resources. Coupled with the defeat of Zabuza and Haku, who had disappeared during the celebration of Gato's death, Kakashi and Naruto gained a little bit more street cred. With the defeat of a Chunin-level shinobi under Naruto's belt and since he took out Gato himself, he earned a little mentioning in a certain book. It wasn't much, but AC ranked ranking in the bingo book, posted by our favorite demon of the mist, gave Naruto a little gain in his goal to become recognized as the strongest shinobi. With his goal feeling a little closer, he was happy for the first time in years. But he didn't let it show on the outside. He would celebrate later with training in his father's technique. He had been studying the Hiraishin technique and was hoping to reverse engineer it but had no luck. He figured he could do it with time and at least a basis to start on. But it wasn't like he could Edo Tensei his father and ask him how he did it. His soul lied buried in the bowels of the Shinigami's stomach. While Naruto was thinking about the technique, Sasuke was silently fuming. Kakashi was giving the Dobi all the credit and wasn't talking about his accomplishments. He had gained his Sharingan. He was, by his clan's standards, a true Uchiha. He seethed on it a little bit but decided to let it pass. Naruto did a great job in Wave, and his achievements was also a team achievement. The Hokage dismissed the team and allowed them to get some rest. They all decided to get something to eat. While walking down the street, the team began to see the glares and heated looks that were sent the blonde's way. At first they thought that maybe Naruto had pranked a few people and made them mad, but they hadn't been in the village for a while. No one holds grudges over pranks that long. It was a little disturbing. They felt an ominous aura coming from the blonde and some of the villagers began sweating. Sasuke himself had his eyes widened by the feeling Naruto was giving off. It reminded him of how Naruto went off on Inari and then controlled himself. But here Naruto was giving them a run for their money. Any glare was returned tenfold and felt like it would burn a hole in the target's head. Naruto walked with his hands behind his head looking up at the sky after everyone went about their normal business. Kakashi was ashamed of his village. The sacrifice his sensei made for the safety of the village was something that was to be upheld. He, himself, saw Naruto as a hero but he just didn't know how to train the boy. He had been keeping details of the boy's style and made a note in his mind to send the boy to a Suma or guide to work on his taijutsu. Naruto passed the weapon shop and remembered the set of claws he had to pick up. He also used this time to pick up a new outfit as the claws wouldn't go with the orange and blue combination. Naruto asked them if they would mind going in the store with him to help him pick up a few things. No one disagreed and followed Naruto in. "Hey, I came to pick up my order, sir," Naruto said, keeping polite. "Naruto, there's no need to be formal with me. Your order is ready," he said as the man placed a box on the counter and opened it up. Naruto handed the man the receipt and began to try them on. They fit well and felt lightweight. He could develop his own style and just to irk the villagers he would name it the Kitsune Ken. Naruto then placed the claws in the box and began to look around. He found some black pants and a black sleeveless shirt. He also found black sandals and some gloves as well to go with the outfit. He decided to replace the cloth on his headband and made it black as well but longer as to flow down his back. He also selected a red and black sleeveless coat that he could wear in case he wanted to make a little bit of an entrance sometime. After trying the gear on, he picked a mesh sleeveless shirt to go underneath his outfit and picked up a few scrolls and some senbon. He was going to make a summoning seal for his claws so he could channel chakra into them and summon them on his hands in the right position by channeling chakra alone. After he paid for his clothes and had copies of the set delivered to his home, he made a shadow clone to deliver the claws and work on the summoning seal there at the house on the claws. Team 7 left the store and continued down to a restaurant. It was fairly new, and the food was said to be pretty good. Kakashi and Sasuke walked in and got nods to go in. As Sakura walked past with Naruto following up, the man at the door stopped Naruto. "I'm sorry sir, but I have orders to keep you out of this establishment," he said, maintaining his composure. He was obviously just doing his job and had no ill intent towards the boy. But he needed this job and he'd be damned if he'd lose it because of morals. Naruto growled a little bit and began to turn around. "You guys go ahead and eat, I'll go to Ichiraku's and get some food," he said, disappearing in a shushin. Kakashi and Sasuke looked a little angry at the man's words, but Sakura looked impassive. Maybe he pranked the owners too before they opened the restaurant. I swear Naruto has really mellowed out compared to the academy, but I guess the damage is done, she thought to herself. She knew how right that statement in itself was. Naruto himself sat on the stool at Ichiraku's. Iruka was the only one who wished him no ill will, but now he was dead. Shinobi that came from civilian households hated Naruto with a passion. The shinobi belonging to the clans of the village all held respect for Naruto. Even the impassive Hyuga did. Although they thought he had no skill as a shinobi due to his results in the academy, they had no ill will towards him. Contrary to many people's belief, the majority of the council even liked the boy. The female member of Sarutobi's old team even brought him vegetables regularly after he requested to go on a healthier diet. Homura himself was able to get Naruto discounts on shinobi items and even helped the boy out on occasions. But all of this was futile against the villagers' hatred and wrath at times. But the Uchiha boy was a different matter. The civilian shinobi and even the villagers hailed him as a genius and the legendary last of the Uchihas. They were ignorant to the true goals of the Uchiha clan. Hell, all the shinobi save for a select few were. But many of the higher-ups who knew what the Uchiha were planning disliked him for that fact alone. They had no hate for him for his clan's movements, but they wondered where his allegiances lie. He was willing to run over anyone in the way of his goal and sacrifice them for the path he walked. This was troublesome for lack of a better word, and they made sure to have him watched. To be honest, both Naruto and Sasuke were the only genin to ever have Anbu and other shinobi watch them like this. Why else would they be placed on Kakashi Hitaki's legendary Sharingan no Kakashi and student of the 4th Hokage team? Kakashi watched them like a hawk and the boys never knew it. The only time Kakashi really let them out of his sight was when they went their different ways. Kakashi just didn't know how to train all of them well. Kakashi had some thinking of his own to do. He decided he was going to talk to Naruto and ask him what prompted him to change himself. He had read Naruto's records, even hearing it from the Hokage himself. This was a radical change. This Naruto was more collected and ruthless, even going so far to inflict damage into an already defeated opponent to get answers. And that was grounds enough for Kakashi to have worries. The Naruto from the academy wouldn't hurt anyone, not even his enemies, as he had done Haku. Naruto looked willing to kill if he didn't get his answers or didn't even like him. Willing to rob a company of millions. This Naruto was a true shinobi. Willing to do what it took to get the job done. While Kakashi liked how Naruto was coming along as a shinobi, he didn't want one so young to go through what he did and end up putting the mission before the true value of helping one's comrades. Naruto sat on the swing outside of the academy and just thought. Someone close to him, the only person to ever accept him for who he was killed for doing just that. Taking a deadly strike to save Naruto's life. Why hadn't Iruka just let that blade hit him? Then it would all be over. Naruto clenched his fist. He need to release his rage, and he'd be damned if his claws didn't get a test run tonight. He took out a senbon and some ink and began to tattoo the seal onto his hands. He flexed after admiring his work and began to channel chakra. The claws appeared on his hands in the right position and fit perfectly. He launched a test swing and liked how it went. Naruto had also picked up one little thing from the store, but he didn't want them to see what it was. It was a face mask, like Kakashi's but black. He placed it on his face and head out to the Forest of Death. He had stumbled upon this training ground by accident and found some dangerous creatures in there. He had also begun to fight them for sport. They proved a challenge and even on occasions almost killed him. But he used those experiences to build himself up. Plus all his scars were healed the next morning, so none had clue of his dangerous training. As Naruto stepped into the forest, he released a little bit of Kyuubi's chakra. It was enough to turn his eyes red and form small fangs and nails, but Naruto kept the chakra low. He ran through the forest with amazing speed. He realized he'd need to get training weights if he planned to get faster and made a note to ask Guy where they got theirs. That night the sounds of animals wailing in death could be heard throughout the village and died down through the night alongside Naruto's anger. He had found a new way to vent his anger. And it felt so good. Naruto had talked to Guy and had gotten something different than Lee's weight. They were not heavy at all and only worked once they were put on. The weights consisted of a weight jacket which was black, forearm weights, ankle weights, and a weight that went around the waist. They reacted to the user's chakra, and the more chakra you had, the heavier they were. Needless to say, Naruto could barely move once the weights were activated. He had to pump his body with the Kyuubi's chakra to even move. After a few weeks of practicing with the weights and Kyuubi repairing and restoring Naruto's ripped muscles back to pristine shape, Naruto was able to move at half his original speed. He could walk normally, but when running he seemed to be in a permanent jog. Unless he removed the weights, that is. His growth with the weights were phenomenal. When he and Lee sparred without their weights, he could match Lee blow for blow. If Lee opened a gate, Naruto would just push harder. It wasn't until the third gate that Naruto needed to use the fox's chakra to keep up after that. Naruto had also found someone who was, in sorts, a kindred spirit to him. Anko, Tokubetsu Junin of the Hidden Leaf Village, happened to be eating dangos when a young boy walked up to her. He looked in her eyes and could tell that she had a similar fate that he did. He looked at her and asked her, "Are you a Jinchuriki as well?" This surprised Anko, as she wasn't informed that the boy had learned about what he contained. Once over her shock, she started laughing. "Whatever gave you that dumb idea, kid?" she asked. Naruto said something she'd never forget with an emotionless voice that sent shivers down her spine. "The pain. Being alone, being hated. I can see it in your eyes," he said as his eyes lost their light a little bit. "It hurts, doesn't it?" he said before walking away. Needless to say, this enraged Anko, and she dragged him to the Forest of Death for a fight. They fought for a while, with Naruto not landing a blow on the Junin and taking many himself. That was, until he took off his weights. Anko was hard-pressed to fight the boy full-on. She had wanted to teach him a lesson about trying to understand something he couldn't comprehend yet. Naruto launched a strike with his fist as his after-image faded from view and Anko had taken a hard hit to the stomach. Naruto stood up correctly with his hands by his side. "I want you to teach me about assassination. You specialize in torture and interrogation, but I heard that if someone was to want to learn true assassination techniques, they could come to you. I want to increase my stealth skills," he finished. Naruto was told about the Chunin exams not long ago, and was deciding to use his time to train. Kakashi, being tardy as usual, wasn't going to say anything until the last moment. Naruto already knew in a week before, having overheard two Chunins talking about it. "What's in it for me, kid?" Anko asked. She was still a little winded after the punch. The kid had skills, but if she resorted to jutsu she could probably out-trump the kid. "Companionship and someone to help you bear through your pain," he responded. Anko's eyes widened. "What?" she asked quietly. "I can see it all over you. You hate being alone. Sure, you have friends, but no one really understands your pain. And I don't want to be alone either. I've already lost one person for protecting me. I want to become strong so it never has to happen again," he finished. Anko sat on the ground and thought about it for a moment. "I could train the kid, he has potential. But I would need other shinobi to help me train him as well. Maybe if I give him the basic Anbu training and see how he works with that. If he survives that, I'll be impressed," she finished thinking. "Alright, we'll see how well you do. Meet me here tomorrow at 5 a.m. Don't be late." 5 a.m. the next day, Training Ground 44. Naruto appeared via Shushin at the same time Anko did. They began the training with a light spar, followed by exercises. Sit-up, push-ups, squats, jumping jacks, punching exercises, kicking exercises, jumping exercises, running exercises. The list went on. After they switched to jutsu and worked on jutsu strategy and methods of techniques to use. With Naruto's extensive knowledge of seals, he was on the fast track to utilizing the Uzumaki blood within him and was becoming an exceptional seal user. Not to mention being the son of the Yellow Flash meant he had potential in itself. Genius like that was always passed down from generation to generation. After working on jutsu they finished with a heavy spar. When the spar was over Anko told him to take laps around the forest to cool off. It was 10 p.m. when Naruto finished training and collapsed on the ground. You.R. Insane, he said in between breaths. Anko kicked him in the ribs. Quit your bitching, I've seen weaker shinobi do better than you've done. She lied. The kid just did an Anbu level training regiment. And even some Anbu hurled after doing this. The Anbu themselves never got used to it. It was designed to push them to their limits every time by increasing the reps you did after mastering an aspect of it. As they left the grounds Naruto and Anko walked side by side. Anko, being 24 and Naruto being half her age made the big sister little brother thing look funny. No one knew who the masked kid was. He had blonde hair and blue eyes and reminded them of a certain Hokage and pariah of the village. But they all focused their glares on the traitor's student. Naruto released more of that ominous aura he had of his. This caused the villagers to sweat bullets. No way was Naruto going to let another stupid villager ruin a good thing for him. He finally had someone who understood him. Anko was touched by the protectiveness of her new little brother, but couldn't help but shiver at that feeling. It was as if Orochimaru had just walked through the gates himself. She remembered his killing intent and how it could even paralyze a person. Naruto was studying the general skill and was making leaps and bounds by testing it on the villagers. He once made some poor old man who tried to hit him with his cane piss himself. After eating a few dango and a few drinks of sake, Naruto helped Anko walk home. Anko walked in and said good night to the boy. But to hear his words shocked her. "Night big sis," he said and disappeared in a shushin. Only a day of knowing the kid and he already called her big sis. Anko didn't know that Naruto had a small habit he couldn't usually break. Anyone who showed him kindness earned them a special place in the boy's heart. And this caused him to view them dearly. This was the reason he called the Hokage, old man or grandfather. The same could be said for Tuchi and Ayame. Anko thought about it for a little while then whispered, "Good night little brother," and closed her door. She finally had someone to relate with her pain. Anko and Naruto constantly kept training the same way during the week. Once Team 7 was given their Chunin exam forms, Naruto was one of the few who had no problem taking the option of taking the test. He knew he'd show up the next day. He just had to hope that his teammates would be as well. Naruto appeared in a shushin followed by Sasuke and Sakura. Wait, Sakura? Shushin? Maybe she had been training. Whatever Sakura had been up to, she had learned a few tricks or something. They couldn't wait to see what she could do on the battlefield. Sasuke walked in front followed by Sakura then Naruto. Naruto didn't mind, he didn't care if Sasuke determined himself team leader. Naruto only cared about getting stronger to prove to the world how strong he was. As they were walking they realized there were two people using a genjutsu on the door to make it say 301. Sasuke almost said something but Naruto put a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. "You do realize it's to weed out the weaker contestants? Right?" he finished up with. Sasuke thought about it. Would he really like weaker people in the exam so as to get a free pass to the real ordeal? It was a small price to pay and would mean a little bit more work, but it also meant that some of the strong ones who knew might gun for them. They continued walking in silence. With that being said, a young boy with bushy eyebrows and a bowl cut in a green jumpsuit stood in their path. "Sasuke Uchiha, I wish for you to fight me," he asked. Naruto knew the kid already from their spars. Sasuke couldn't keep up with this boy's speed with his weights on. So it would only be suicidal for Sasuke to fight the boy now. What if he got injured? "Lee-san, you know I can't allow you to fight Sasuke. What if he got injured? Our team would be hurt. That would be most unyouthful," Naruto said. He was mentally smiling in the back of his mind. Lee's eyes widened as he got down on his forehead and bowed to them. Gomen, I didn't mean to cause any problems, I just wanted to see what the last of the Uchihas could do. He finished explaining. Save it for the tournaments, Lee. Naruto said as he walked past. Let's go, we've wasted enough time. He said. Sasuke didn't like this and looked at Naruto. And who said you're in charge of this team? Sasuke asked. The same person who put you in charge. Now let's go. Naruto finished. Naruto was getting impatient. Egos were clashing and now was not the time. They made their way to the room. Kakashi greeted them explaining that if only 2 or less had came, their journey to the Chunin exams would have stopped there. He wished them luck and they entered the room. Inside they met a lot of old friends and even some new ones. While engaged in chit-chat, the participants were glaring at them. Damn, rookies were going to be easy pickings. As the rookie 9 were chattering away, a young man with silver hair was talking. You know, you really should keep it down, you're causing a lot of attention to be directed at you. He said calmly. The rookies stopped talking and looked around to see everyone looking at them with evil intentions in their eyes. Naruto stepped forward. He unleashed a small portion of the Kyuubi's chakra and talked ever so lightly. If any of you try to hurt my team or fellow shinobi, I'll kill you. Plain and simple. The weight of his words bore down on some of the inexperienced genins. But one genin he had met before hadn't flinched. Earlier that day, Naruto was walking down the street with Sakura. So Sakura, did you train for the exam? He asked. He assumed no, but the answer he got surprised him. Actually, Naruto, I've been training for a while. I went to talk to Kurenai-sensei to learn a few genjutsu. I have a few tricks up my sleeves now. She finished. Naruto was impressed that Sakura learned genjutsu. That's great, I am. Okay, rocks aren't square, guys, come on out. He said. All of a sudden, a large blast of smoke and coughing followed by the words, Udon, that's too much gunpowder, and the sound of a, sorry, reaching their ears provided all the information they needed. Konohamaru, what are you doing? He asked. I wanted to see if you'd train me some more. I finally learned that one technique you taught me. Look, he said as he formed a hand sign and transformed perfectly into Naruto. Impressive, Konohamaru asked. Alright, I'll train you some more today before the Chunin exams. Run off and play for a little while. Me and Sakura have some things to discuss. He finished. Konohamaru ran off smirking before looking back and shouted, have fun with your girlfriend, causing Sakura to turn red and chase after them. Konohamaru ran faster while laughing but wasn't looking where he was going. Hey, you little brat. You bumped into me, a voice said. Suddenly Konohamaru was lifted up. Hey, let me go, he said while struggling. No way, brat, you owe me an apology. And I'm going to teach you a lesson about bumping into the son of the case cage. He finished. He drew back his fist as he felt cold hard steel on his throat. I wouldn't do that if I was you. It'd be a shame to send the case cage's son home in a box for attacking the Hokage's grandson. And anyone who attacks my students usually end up missing body parts. His voice was cold and dark. The boy wasn't intimidated though until he felt that chakra. What are you? He asked. The second coming of the devil if you cross me. Naruto replied. Now let him go. He finished as he pressed the blade in, drawing blood. Just then a figure jumped down from the tree with an insane look on his face. Mother says you're really strong, and she wants your blood. He finished as his smile only increased more. Naruto was a little stunned. He hadn't even sensed him coming but could feel something off about him. And who are you? Naruto asked, looking at the boy. Kankuro dropped the Sarutobi child to the ground. Konohamaru ran behind Sakura and stuck his tongue out. You're gonna get it now. That's my big brother. He finished. I am Sabaku no Gaara. And you are? He asked, looking at Naruto. His grin was slowly going back. He was regaining control. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Sorry about your friend here. He shouldn't attack a Hokage's grandson out in the open like that. People have been killed for less, he said, removing the blade as Kankuro gulped. Gaara, save it, Kankuro. You're a disgrace to our village. I should kill you myself. I apologize for his actions, Uzumaki-san. Gaara interrupted. Just call me Naruto. He finished. I look forward to seeing you again, Uzumaki. Gaara said, walking off. I can't wait either, Naruto said, looking at his retreating form. Sasuke dropped down from the tree. What was that all about? Sasuke asked. Nothing. I think our day is going to get a little more interesting soon. Present time. Alright maggots, settle down. I'm Ibiki Morino and I'm the prompter for the first test of the Chunin exams. Said a booming voice as a man wearing a bandana-type headband and a black trenchcoat appeared. After a little bit of talking and a little crying from some of the genin, they were assigned sheets and given instructions to the test. The questions were obviously harder than most genin would be able to answer. So it was obvious the point of the exam was to cheat with the given rules. Naruto figured it out after thinking for a little while and decided to just wait a little while. Hinata offered him the answers she collected and he gladly took them. As time passed on, Ibiki's voice sounded as he told them to put their pencils down. Alright maggots, it's time for the 10th question. Now before I ask this question I want you to know you don't have to take the question. But if you refuse to take the question, you and your team are disqualified. He was interrupted. Then we'll obviously take the question. Not so fast. If you agree to take the question and get it wrong, then you automatically fail the Chunin exams and can never become a genin again. He finished lacing it with a little bit of killing intent to get the point across. At this point a lot of genin rose their hands and started moving. Sakura was getting ready to, but a stare from Naruto and Sasuke backed her out of it. It wasn't a hateful glare. It was more like, "You're better than this, Sakura. We have faith in you." type of stare. It gave her determination and she steeled her resolve. Genin were dropping like flies and even one of the rookie teams rose their hands. Hinata with her confidence issues was faring well, but it looked as if she was going to crack any moment. Then a thought occurred to her. Why should rank mean anything to her? She was the Hyuga heiress, all she needed to do was get stronger. Caught up in her thoughts as Ibiki asked if anyone else wanted to quit. With the handful of genins left over, he congratulated them on passing the first stage of the Chunin exams before Anko came busting through the window. Alright maggots, I'm your... What is it with you people and calling us baby flies? Laughter filled the room as Anko's eyebrow twitched and she hit the voice over the top of the head with her fist. And what is it with you interrupting your big sister? She said as Naruto laid on the ground out cold. Alright kiddies, let's go. We're going to practice Arena 44. There was a large gulp at this point from one Naruto Uzumaki. The Forest of Death. Alright, listen up, here are the rules for the second exam. Anko started. Plain and simple, anything goes once the bell starts. This will be a no-holds-barred scroll battle. Meaning you genin will fight over possession of two types of scroll. Each team will either have a heaven scroll or an earth scroll. There are 14 teams this year that made it past the first exam. So that means 7 of you will have the earth scroll and 7 will have the heaven. The teams left were the Sound, Sand, teams 7, 8, and 9, an AIM team, Kabuto's team, and 7 other teams. They each got their scrolls and were headed off to different gates. Once the gates were opened, Team 7 dashed off into the forest to secure a hiding place. They had a heaven scroll, meaning they needed an earth scroll. Naruto wanted to test himself against the Sand genin but realized his team wouldn't fare well. One-on-one Naruto might be able to beat Gaara, but with teamwork like Team 7's against actual brothers and sisters, he didn't think they had much of a chance. Sakura was not stronger than Temari and Sasuke could handle Kankuro, but Sasuke would probably go for Gaara and be obliterated within minutes. Sasuke heard a rustle in the bushes and threw a few kunai into the bush. A yell came from the bush revealing a downed Iwa genin. At that moment the genin smiled and turned into earth as Sasuke had triggered the trap. The earth gave way to reveal an explosive tag that caused Sasuke to activate the substitution technique. 2 genin appeared over Naruto and Sakura. Sakura acted quickly, forming a hand sign for a quick genjutsu and disappeared in a blur of Sakura petals. The genin realized the genjutsu and went to cancel it, but the time needed would take a quick second. And a second was all Naruto need to stick his hands out and launch a powerful wind wave that blasted the genins, beaking them from the genjutsu and knocking them out cold. Sasuke had his own little battle against the last Iwa genin, knocking him out cold and subduing him with ninja wire. As Sasuke appeared with the bundled boy over his shoulder, he threw him on top of his teammates as Naruto searched for a scroll. Heaven scroll, bust, Naruto said. Maybe we could use it and trade it for an earth scroll for a team that has 2 earth scrolls. Sakura said, but we won't know which team has which scroll unless we ask, and doing that will only make us targets. Sasuke responded. While the team was coming up with a plan, a large breeze suddenly appeared, then intensified once it reached the group. Sasuke and Sakura were blasted over to another field while Naruto was sent hurling into the open and waiting mouth of a giant snake. Naruto, as he landed in the snake's mouth, equipped his claws and used wind chakra. After gathering enough chakra, he unleashed a powerful slash at the stomach of the beast, cutting through it and making his way out. Damn snake, ruined my clothes, Naruto thought. He then heard the sounds of a battle starting not far away. He made his way over to his teammates to see them battling a Kusa genin with snake-like movements and a really long tongue. He landed in a bush and observed. He could see Sakura and Sasuke recovering from the wind blast. Sasuke-kun, it's so nice to finally meet you. I've heard so much about the last of the Uchiha. I wanted to test you myself and see how well you'd perform. The Kusa genin said, licking her lips. Just who the hell are you? He started until an unbearable amount of killing intent flooded his and Sakura's senses. They each froze for a moment while all of a sudden they could see their bodies being torn to shreds by blades of wind. To end their suffering, a kunai would embed itself in their skulls. They stood their mouths agape when the kunai struck in a silent scream. Naruto realized instantly that that was the skill Anko was talking about. The ability to paralyze enemies with killing intent alone. Needless to say, Naruto made a large amount of clones. Whoever this was, they were no pushover. That was an advanced skill. And not even most Junin could pull it off. The clones went in one by one. The first one intercepted the dashing Kusa ninja as she aimed for Sasuke. By using a kunai, it came down on the Kusa ninja, causing them to halt or be slashed. The clone threw the kunai and formed a few hand seals as another clone dropped down holding a seal. A blast of wind came from the genin at the same time as the clone finished his hand seals. The kunai multiplied into many and were picking up speed. The force of the kunai were enough to cause holes in the trees as they went through them. The Kusa ninja turned to mud and disappeared. Damn it, where'd she? Suddenly 2 clones popped out of existence. Naruto searched through their memories and they had felt the attacks come from the top right corner of their skulls. Meaning she was in the trees above them. He formed another clone and had it pop out of the forest and go after her. Once Naruto reached the genin, the battle truly began. The Kusa genin launched a left punch that was blocked by Naruto, followed by a right that was dodged and a kick that was grabbed by Naruto, who then launched a leg sweep and using the leg attempted to slam the genin on the ground. But the Kusa genin was flexible and used the momentum to launch themselves into a flip after leaving Naruto's grasp. Naruto charged at the genin, launching a powerful right which was caught in the genin's hand. My, what have we here? You seem talented. The Kusa genin spoke. And you smell of snakes. What is your business here, Kusa ninja? Naruto asked. He was holding his stance in case anything was about to happen. I just wanted to test young Sasuke-kun over there, but you've caught my interest. There's a fire within you just waiting to come out, child. And I'm going to bring that fire out of you. Even if it kills you. The ninja said before kicking Naruto hard in the stomach, dispelling him. Damn it. That ninja is too strong to be a genin. Naruto came to the conclusion. He only had one choice. Use the Kyuubi's power. The clones dispersed after sending the chakra back to Naruto as he dipped into the fox's power and his claws grew and his whisker marks darkened. He then was covered in a deep red aura as he launched a surprise attack from behind the Kusa shinobi. The slash itself split the ninja in two, but the strangest thing happened. The Kusa ninja was stitched back together by snakes. What the fu was the last thing Naruto said before getting hit into a tree and became dizzy from spinning so far. He stood up and looked at the Kusa ninja as they started moving sideways and back and forward to confuse Naruto. Naruto regained his senses just enough to block and dodge a combination of punches and kicks from the Kusa nin. But he was quickly losing ground. He gathered chakra and summoned his chakra-reinforced steel claws and channeled wind chakra into them and increased their cutting power and length. By sending a lot of chakra through them, he impaled the Kusa ninja as they fell on the ground. Suddenly the Kusa's ninja mouth opened up and there was a tall, pale man with dark hair and an interesting outfit. What delicious power. You'll make a perfect addition to my list should I be able to deal with that little pet inside of you. He said as his fingers became dark purple. Naruto stepped back realizing the seal, but it was too late. The ninja was upon him and launched a powerful hand into his stomach directly onto the seal. He then extended his fangs biting Naruto in his neck as a seal appeared looking like 3 curved lines. He threw Naruto onto the ground as he got caught on a tree branch. "Sorry Sasuke-kun, but I can't afford to play with you anymore. Battling dear Naruto-kun here took a lot out me. But I'll catch you later. If you want the same power Naruto has, seek me out," he said while vanishing. Sasuke fell to his knees as did Sakura from witnessing the battle. One thing was clear. If they didn't find cover for nightfall, things were going to get very difficult. Sasuke sat across from Sakura looking at the fire that lit their teammate's face. "Naruto, there's so much we don't know about you. What are you hiding?" Sakura said out loud. She wanted to be there for Naruto and Sasuke, but she just wasn't strong enough. The entire time Naruto had been fighting, neither moved an inch to help him. Not that they stood a chance. They just watched him fight headstrong against some unknown man. Sakura racked her brain for answers and remembered hearing a story about the 3 Sannin. They each held a summoning contract and were known by their summons. Jiraiya was the summoner of frogs. Tsunade the summoner of slugs, and the summoner of snakes was, oh god, Sasuke. That man Naruto was fighting. That was Orochimaru of the Sannin. A legendary ninja. He's lucky he's not dead. At least, I hope he's not, she said before checking his forehead. Naruto had been in shakes and pains. He was heating up and seemed to be miserable. "No, don't. Why are you doing this? Why? I'm not a demon. I'm a kid. Stop," Naruto kept calling out. Sakura was silently wiping away tears, wondering what kind of treatment Naruto had been going through. He seemed so cold sometimes. Not like the child he once was. Not since after the Genin exams. They had taken time to get to know the new Naruto. He was cold, calculating, and didn't do anything without reason. But most of all, he was a killer. He could kill in cold blood without so much of an emotion. And that unnerved Sakura and Sasuke the most. "He's a lot like him, my brother," Sasuke stated. "Sasuke, what do you, ever since he killed our family, ever since he walked out those gates, not a day goes by where I wish I was strong enough to stop him. I may want to kill him, but I want to know why. Why did he do that to the clan? Why was he doing this? He was my brother. We used to laugh, play, we were family," Sasuke said as the stick he was using to play with the fire was being gripped tighter and tighter until it snapped. "Sasuke," Sakura said lowly, "how does he find the will to push on? I remember my brother slaughtering my clan. I didn't rush in and attack him. I didn't do anything but cower and fear him. And after it was all said and done, I began to hate him," Sasuke finished. He looked at Naruto with something akin to jealousy. How can he find the will to push on? This isn't the first time we've heard him say those things in his sleep, Sakura. He's done it before. In Wave. It was more quiet, but at night I could hear him calling out for help. I want to know. I need to know. What is it that causes him so much pain? Why is his hatred greater than mine?" Sasuke was now shouting. He didn't like being the one not getting the attention, and deep down he knew this. He was so used to his mother's attention, and after her death he craved attention. With Naruto in the light he couldn't get the attention he wanted. But he also was angry. Not at Naruto, but at the fact that another person had to grow up with a similar pain to him. Suddenly a figure dropped down in front of them wearing silver glasses with silver hair. "Do you really want to know the truth about your friend? I can promise you may not like it," someone said in a sing-song voice. Sasuke pulled out a kunai. "Who are you?" he asked. Now Sasuke. I know we just met earlier, but you should really remember the names of people who try to help you. I'm Kabuto Yakushi, remember me?" he said holding up a hand. "What do you want?" Sasuke said, lowering the kunai a little. Sakura was keeping her guard up and watching him. "You want the truth, so I'm prepared to give it to you on one condition," he asked. "And that would be?" Sasuke asked. "You see, I'm lost from my team and need someone to escort me to the tower. I have 2 Earth Scrolls and we already have a Heaven Scroll. And I'm willing to pay you with the 2nd Earth Scroll for your services. I'll even help you take care of your friend there," he said. Sasuke thought about it for a second before agreeing. What did they have to lose? They could travel with this man and possibly keep their life. Or they could travel alone with an unconscious teammate and possibly die. The deck was stacked against them. The truth about Naruto was revealed not too long ago. Actually, during your mission when you left the village, the law uplifted about Naruto's status was the hot topic for the day. It was the moment when everything for Naruto was really going downhill. Because people could openly refuse him entrance to any facility he wished to enter. And it's all because of something that was placed outside of his control. Kabuto finished. What do you mean? What is Naruto? Sakura asked a little bewildered. He's the holder of the nine-tailed demon fox. The same fox which almost destroyed this entire village not long ago. Kabuto finished. Shock was evident on Sakura and Sasuke's face. Sasuke walked over and lifted up Naruto's shirt and was able to see a seal around his stomach. Obvious from the chakra that was within Naruto battling for control. What is that? Sasuke asked. That, Sasuke, is the Yondaime's seal that contains the chakra of the nine-tailed fox. Sasuke thought back. The red aura that appeared around him in wave. The aura that appeared around him earlier. That was the fox's power. But, wasn't he holding it back? What if it was slipping? What if he was a danger to them all? Sasuke pulled a kunai and prepared to stab Naruto but then thought for a moment before Sakura lunged on top of Naruto protecting him with her body. Sasuke, she yelled. Kabuto sat on the ground and watched the show. He's a hero. Yet he's treated like trash. Alone. No family. No one to care for him. He's been alone longer than I have. His pain is stronger. His hate for this village, and yet he still continues to fight for them every day. It's insane, Sasuke said as he fell to the ground on his butt as realization hit him. Indeed, while many villagers and some shinobi view him as the fox, some see him as the holder of great power and respect him for it. Kabuto said. Sasuke dropped the kunai and placed his hands on his head. Gah! Naruto started screaming as chakra began to pulsate around him. But the chakra was obviously foul. It was purple and swirling around him. Lines began to form all over his body as his eyes opened, but he looked as if he was choking. He then began to reach for his pack and pull out a piece of paper and pressed it to his stomach. A large hissing sound activated as the seal on top of his vanished. He began to breathe heavily as his senses were clouded with rage like orders from his mind. He wanted to maim, he wanted to kill, but he knew better than to let his emotions get the better of him. He clenched his hand and the blood began to fall down. The curse mark slowly began to regress back to Naruto's neck as he flopped down on his back breathing heavily. What huff asterisk the hell huff was that? Naruto said. Sasuke and Sakura looked at him. Naruto regained his breath as he felt the fox's chakra running through his body and start healing him. It was also helping battle the curse seal and was helping purify his system. That power, it was amazing. But it was so tainted. He said out loud, Naruto, are you okay? Sakura asked. Naruto looked at her. I'll be fine. Sasuke stood up. Why didn't you tell us? Sasuke said while looking at the ground. Naruto looked at Sasuke, then he noticed Kabuto. He began to put two and two together slowly. What did you tell them, Kabuto? Naruto asked. Only what they needed to know. Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. Kabuto exclaimed. Naruto was livid. How dare you? You have no right to be telling my Sensei's like. The third Hokage. He lifted the law, didn't he? He said as he slumped down. Kabuto nodded and Naruto caught it. Why, Naruto? Why did you not tell me? Why didn't you tell us? All this time you just hide this from your own team. Sasuke said. This surprised Naruto. Why do you even care? You have your own issues to deal with, why bother yourself with mine? Don't you have a brother you wish to kill anyhow? Then realization hit Sasuke like a ton of bricks. Naruto never had no family. To kill one's own family was like stepping on Naruto's face and make him realize while others would kill their own family he was denied ever having one. You don't have any right to judge me, you nine-tailed freak. Sasuke exclaimed before lifting his head. Sasuke. You shouldn't say such. Shut up, Sakura. Naruto said. I want to hear this. He said before slowly standing up. What was that, Dobi? Sasuke said, taking a stance. You heard me. Teme, Naruto said, taking his own stance. In the blink of an eye they were upon each other before Kabuto appeared before them with his hands criss-cross blocking the punches. Now, it wouldn't be good business for employees to fight in front of their client, would it? Kabuto shook his hands to get the sting out of the blows. They were going to knock each other's head off. he thought to himself. Your brother killed your family. I get that. I understand you wanting to kill him. But did he ever tell you while he did it, Sasuke? Naruto asked. Sasuke sat down for a minute before placing his chin on his knees. He looked really vulnerable as he explained the massacre from his own eyes. I was coming home from the academy one day. It was eerily quiet until I heard a scream. I ran down the alley and there I saw it. Blood everywhere. My own brethren, the shopkeeper, the police force, even my uncle and aunt who owned a small store. Dead with their blood and shock evident on their face. I ran home as fast as I could. When I opened the door, I stood there watching as my brother killed our father and mother. I asked him why, and do you know what answer I got? He said before he looked up. He did it merely to test his abilities. He said when I have the same eyes as him to seek him out and gain vengeance. He told me to run, cling to life. And that's the last thing I remembered. He said. The painful memory awoke something in Sasuke. His eyes widened as he remembered his brother's face. He was crying that day. I'd never seen my brother cry. He said, and you want to kill him? The pain is evident on his face. He obviously didn't do it to test his own limits. Naruto said. This was the first time Sasuke openly talked about what happened. It hurt him a lot. Sakura stood there in silence. She wasn't anything like these two. She wasn't openly hated, maybe by Ino, but they were still friends. She had a family and neither one of them ever tried to kill her. She followed the rules and never had anything hard to go through other than these Chunin exams. Why didn't you tell us, Naruto? Sakura asked. Naruto swallowed hard and admitted something he had never said to anyone before. I was afraid, he said as a lone tear fell down his eye. I never wanted to get attached to anyone ever again. Do you know how I passed my Genin exam? Naruto asked as he looked at them. Both of them could tell this was something that was going to be a doozy, so they both braced themselves. Months ago, when I failed the Genin exam, I sat alone on the swing. I could hear the villagers' approval that the demon brat didn't pass the exams. Then he came along, Mizuki-sensei. He offered me a way to get Genin. All I had to do was pass a simple test. I wasn't exactly the brightest kid in the bunch such a short time back. But I took it anyways. All I had to do was steal a scroll from the Hokage's mansion. The jutsu I used to use knocked the old pervert out pretty easily. I ran with the scroll into the forest, and that's when I practiced and learned the new Kage Bunshin technique. I learned the Taju Kage Bunshin as well. I trained hard to master the one skill I sucked at the most. By this time, Iruka caught up to me. He asked me what I was doing and I explained the test to him. He was then pinned by shuriken to the wall. Mizuki appeared to be the one who threw the kunai. He asked for the scroll but Iruka told me not to. I held onto the scroll for dear life. Then Mizuki told me the reason why they hated me so. He told me I was the nine-tailed fox. Iruka defended me stating that he didn't believe that. Not anymore. When Mizuki went in for the kill, Iruka took it instead of me. He said as the tears freely flowed and his voice cracked. It was the first and only time someone had done something so brave for me. There was so much pain on his face, so much hurt. He didn't have to die for me. He didn't have to do what he did. But he did. The anger inside was too much. I went berserk. I made a lot of clones and beat Mizuki until he was only identifiable by his dental records. It was the first time I killed someone. And the first time I realized that in order to survive in the shinobi world, I had to become strong. I trained myself day and night, pushing my limits, and now, look at me. I'm still a sniveling kid, he said as he wiped the tears from his eyes. Naruto, Sakura said. He placed a hand on his shoulder and for the first time she brought him into a hug. He cried harder than he had in so long. Sakura held him and comforted him. Then Sasuke did something unexpected and stood up and walked over to Naruto. You're not alone, Naruto. Not anymore. We're here for you. Sasuke then placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. You're not alone, Naruto. Not anymore, he said. Kabuto slowly clapped his hands. How sweet. We should probably get moving though. It's been 3 days in this forest and we don't have much time. Let's go, he said as they rushed off to the tower. Little did they know that this moment would greatly affect Naruto and change his outlook on some people. He could trust Sasuke and Sakura. He knew that for sure. But he felt closer to his team. And for the first time in years, he felt accepted. Kabuto and Team 7 made it to the tower with minimal interference. They realized that a few of the teams might scope out the towers and try to ambush weaker teams to get the scrolls they needed, so they walked quietly and stealthily. Well, as quiet as genins could. Once inside the tower, Kabuto split off from them, thanking them for helping him get back to his team. There they came across a phrase on the wall. Deciphering the phrase and opening both scrolls, a Chunin appeared and congratulated them on passing the second phase of the Chunin exam. They all exhaled a breath as Naruto touched his shoulder where he was bitten. I know this looks bad, but we shouldn't tell anyone except Kakashi-sensei. He finished. They both nodded as Naruto moved to speak again. Also, this is too minor for me to forfeit and leave now, so no matter what, I'm going to continue fighting against this thing. It was then that Sakura took a firm stance and looked at Naruto. You shouldn't fight in this condition, Naruto. You know better than this. Don't tell me that you're going to risk that thing corrupting your ability to fight, she said as she took on a motherly tone. Naruto appreciated it, he really did, but he couldn't accept the fact of giving up. I just can't do it. I can't give up this easily, not to this thing at least. He said, I'm going to fight Sakura. I need to fight. I need to see if I'm strong enough, he said as he walked off. Sasuke understood the need to prove one's strength, but lately he was rethinking why he wanted to prove his strength. Naruto was becoming the closest thing to a brother he could recognize since Itachi. He didn't want to see him hurt, but he knew Naruto was a strong individual. I say he should fight Sakura. There's nothing we can do to persuade him out of it. Might as well let him try, Sasuke said as he walked off. Sakura followed, a little upset, but she understood. Boys will be boys. Time passed in the tower that sat within the Forest of Death relatively quickly. Teams came in, and at the 5-day marker all the teams who were going to make it had already made it. Some teams didn't make it till the last moment though, and others made it a day before. It was then that they had to gather on the floor of the towers. Congratulations to the genin who made it this far, Hiruzen spoke. You have done well so far, but I think it's time I explained the real reasons these exams are formed. He started. He explained to them that the Chunin exams were a substitute for war. From the occasional questions he answered to the time he finished his speech, it was time for them to start another round. He was about to go into explanation of what the rounds would contain, but a sickly-looking ninja appeared. Excuse me, Lord Hokage, but allow me to explain the round, as it is my duty to do so, he said politely. Hiruzen confirmed and nodded as the Chunin coughed to clear his throat before beginning. Be it from the simplicity of the exams or the skill of the entrance, there are too many of you to continue on to the next round, so in order to decide who goes to the finals we will have a preliminary round, he said between coughs. This elicited groans from many of the genin in the stands as one asked why they had to fight when they just came out of that god-forsaken forest. The shinobi explained to them the reason and began to direct their name to the boards above. He asked if anyone would like to concede and leave the exam, and only the ones who made it there that day and Kabuto rose their hands and were escorted off. Alright, it's time for the first match, he said as the names rolled. Will the two genins enter the floor? He said as Sasuke and Yoroi made their way down. Sasuke entered a stance before Yoroi chuckled at him. Prepare to lose, kid, he said as the prompter rose his hand. Ready, begin, he said as he slashed through the air signaling the start of the match. Sasuke ran at the man as he removed shuriken from his pouch. He threw the shuriken as Yoroi took out a kunai and slashed at them, knocking them away. While he was doing that, Sasuke was in the middle of seals, already preparing for his fire style as he launched it towards Yoroi. Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu, he said as small fireball projectiles came at the genin. He dodged in between them before closing the distance between him and Sasuke as Sasuke launched a punch which the man grabbed. Suddenly, Sasuke felt weaker. What is this? He said as he realized the man was draining his chakra. He launched a kick to the man's knee, forcing him to cave in and let go as he launched another kick towards the falling man, ducking down and slamming him in the chin. Time to end this, Sasuke said as he disappeared behind the man. He launched an elbow into the man who blocked it as he kicked him in the gut. He launched a series of blows, increasing the man's decent before he ended with a massive heel to the man's stomach as they collided with the ground. Sasuke used the kick and propelled himself off the man as the effects of the shadow of the dancing leaf caught up with him. He fell to a knee as he panted. Winner, Sasuke, the prompter said before coughing. The board flashed again as another series of names went by. They finally stopped on 2 names as Sakura looked at the board a little bit worried. Sakura and Oboro made their way down to the floor. HMPH, this'll be a piece of cake. The AIM Genin said as the match was started. Sakura started off running at the man making clones. The Genin threw shuriken which caused the clone to dispel as Sakura had changed places with them while running, confusing the order they were in. She launched a kick at the Genin as he ducked under and jumped back. Obviously he wasn't a close-range fighter. He suddenly sunk underground as Sakura blinked. "What?" she said before she felt a presence behind her and jumped. Luckily she dodged the slash that would have taken out her tendon and caused he to collapse. The kunai was thrown as she threw her own, causing it to bounce back. Suddenly, large amounts of Oboro appeared from the ground. She launched a kunai at one of them only for it to phase through. "These are only illusions, what do you plan to do with?" She was interrupted as one slashed her. What was that? She thought. She could have sworn they were illusions. There was no way they could have hit her. She was forced to dodge back and forth as her stamina was nearing its end. She decided a little genjutsu would be fair as well. She formed a few hand seals, casting a small genjutsu around her as she vanished in a flurry of Sakura petals. Oboro appeared from the ground but was unable to find her. It was at this moment Sakura saw what the man was doing and formed a few hand seals. Once she finished, a flurry of Sakura petals appeared from below the man. He didn't know what it was but he had an idea. Suddenly, he was taken by surprise as he saw a massive monster closing in on him. It was pale with yellow eyes and a body like a snake. It extended and tried to close on him with its jaws open. Oboro was terrified of snakes. He promptly passed out from the influx of the horror of being eaten alive by one. Sakura cancelled her petal genjutsu as the clones disappeared. "Winner, Sakura," the prompter once again concluded. The board opened up once again as 2 more names flashed on the screen. "Hey, I have to fight one of those weakling kunoichis," Tamari thought as she made her way down the stairs. "This'll be too easy," she said as she faced a girl with buns in her hair. "Ready, begin," the prompter explained. The girl removed some shuriken and kunai from her pouches as the girl blocked them with her wind fan as she opened it up to 1 moon. "Ha! You'll never touch me with those tools, weakling," she exclaimed. "When 3 moons are revealed, it'll be the end of you," she said, not as a boast but as a declaration of skill. Tenten figured it was a taunt and jumped into the air as smoke appeared around her. She began summoning ninja tools at an alarming rate as she manipulated them with ninja wire, causing them to rain down on the Suna kunoichi. But none reached her as the weapons fell all around her. As Tenten fell to the ground seemingly exhausted, she smirked as she lifted her hand and the tools all went flying back at Tamari, who seemed unimpressed. She sent a wave of wind towards the strings, causing them to fall and falter. Tenten was shocked. Tamari had her fan extended as she hurled a large cyclone of wind at Tenten. Tenten was launched into the air as she was slashed multiple times by the wind. Lee looked on in horror as Tenten fell. Suddenly a blur appeared out the corner of their eyes as he caught Tenten. Lee stood looking at Tamari. He had realized where she was going to land, and Tamari was going to let her land brutally on her fan. "That was most unyouthful," he declared as he looked angry. For those who knew Lee, it was rare to see anger on his face. Tenten looked up at him. "Thanks, Lee," she replied before he helped her get back up the stairs. "Whatever, weakling," Tamari said as she was declared the winner. She walked back up the stairs as the board appeared again. This time it landed on Shino and some boy from the Sound Village. They remembered him in the room and Shino wished to see the boy's ability. "Begin," the prompter said as they stood still. "I'm gonna end this with 1 move," Zaku declared as he launched his decapitating airwave at Shino. Shino seemed to disappear behind Zaku as he got in close range. "Give up, you cannot win this battle," he said calmly. The voice detained no hint of sarcasm or joke. He was dead serious. "TCH, you can't beat me," he said as he launched another wave. This Shino dissolved into bugs and began to corral around the boy. He was surrounded. Suddenly he pointed his hands at opposite ends. "Extreme decapitating airwave," he said, but when he tried to get the wave up his arms and out his body, something was blocking its flow. Suddenly, his arms exploded as he fell to the ground screaming in pain. What just happened?" Sakura asked. Kakashi decided to enlighten her. When Shino was in close proximity, he let some of his bugs get on the genin. He used his bugs to clog the boy's air holes in his hands. When he tried to use it, his arms went pop. He said lightly. Sakura nodded in horror and fear of this genin. Shino was not to be toyed with. Shino made his way up to the stairs. I gave him a chance, he should have taken it. He thought as the names rolled on. In the middle of the floor stood two genins. One with a bundle on his back and the other taking an interesting stance. Give up, you can't win. Masumi said. TCH, like I'd lose to some Konoha weakling. You won't even qualify as a warm-up. He said as he took the pouch off his back. He began to unwrap it as the instructor said no, but Masumi appeared before him with blinding speed. Impressive for a genin, not so much to the higher-ranking ninja in the room. Kankuro was caught unaware as Masumi began to wrap around him and constrict like a snake. Give up, or I'll break your neck, kid. He said as Kankuro smirked. Like I said, I ain't giving you, he said as his neck was broken. It hung limply before it suddenly turned around, parts of it breaking off. Now it's your turn, he said as Kankuro's body shifted into that of a puppet. I'll break everything but your neck, he said as the puppet began to constrict Masumi and began breaking bones, joints, and everything, but his neck. Masumi fell to the ground dead within seconds. Winner. Kankuro, he said a bit shocked. The brutality behind the attack was something no genin should have in their body to do. Many of the genins became sick looking at the simplicity of crushing someone so easily. Kankuro smirked as he made his way back up the stairs. Alright, for the next match. He began as the board began to flash. Another genin looking like the previous genin that fought Sakura appeared. He looked at Kin with anything but interest. When the match began, he sunk underground. He employed the same technique his teammate did, wearing her down and causing her to get confused. She promptly forfeited, realizing that this man was outside of her range. She couldn't utilize her senbon because he was underground, and her senbon wouldn't reach. Sure, she could lay them all over the place, but he could just go under and avoid the sound. Mubi rose from the ground and went back upstairs next to his sensei. The board rolled to show two unsuspecting names. Naruto Uzumaki and Kiba Inuzuka made their way downstairs. Begin, the prompter said as Kiba looked at Naruto. Wahoo, this'll be easy. Prepare yourself, Naruto. 'Cause I'm gonna finish this in one punch, he said as he charged at Naruto. Naruto looked uninterested and caught the punch before forming a half-hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he said as another clone appeared and launched a powerful punch underneath Kiba's jaw. The punch sent Kiba back as he fell with a thud. Kiba got up looking at Naruto with shocked eyes. The hell? Kiba said. Suddenly everyone was quiet. That was brutal, Kakashi thought as he looked at Naruto. I don't like being underestimated, he said as his cage Bunshin walked towards Naruto. Using chakra was hurting like hell and the curse seal was siphoning chakra like crazy, but luckily Naruto had plenty to spare. He could use the cage Bunshin a few times, but he was going to have to stick to taijutsu if he wanted to win here. Plus he didn't want to show off any tricks. Naruto's clone walked towards Kiba as Kiba's dog jumped in front of Kiba and barked. Kiba reached inside his pocket as he pulled something out. Akamaru, he said as the dog turned and opened up, swallowing the food pill. Kiba took one out for himself. Alright then, let's get serious, Kiba said as Akamaru then hopped on his back. Man-beast clone, he said as Akamaru turned into a clone of him. They then began running at Naruto and his clone. One began spinning as did the other. Both Naruto clones avoided it as they continued spinning around. They came to a stop as Naruto disappeared quickly with a blur of speed and rose up his hand into a fist. Kiba sidestepped it and launched a kick which Naruto blocked with his other hand. Kiba brought his other leg up at an aim at Naruto's face while Naruto brought his arm back to block it. This caused Kiba to be upside down as he used his hands as a brace and completed a handstand. He began spinning as his legs became a blur and Naruto was forced to hop back as Kiba completed his spins. He then pushed off the ground, landing on his hands as Naruto just collected himself. Meanwhile, Kiba clone and Naruto clone were fighting. It was a pretty much feral attack from the Kiba clone versus a well-organized taijutsu attack from Naruto. Akamaru would slash with his human hand, claw, and would cause Naruto to deflect at the forearm. They exchanged punches and kicks with Naruto landing a good kick to the Akamaru Kiba clone and sent him back into a wall with the force of the kick. This knocked the air out the little pup, causing him to transform back into Akamaru. It was spent as it was. Naruto looked at Kiba and removed a few shuriken from his pouch. "I should be careful with this," he said as he threw the shuriken. He threw them at Kiba as the dog user heard the whistling of shuriken. He dodged out the way expecting them to fly into the wall, but was surprised when they twisted up and began to rain down from above him. It was then that the Naruto clone formed hand seals. Shuriken shadow clone technique. It said as a rain of shuriken was above Kiba. Kiba was scraped and pelted with many shurikens, but the amount was turned into a 20 instead of the usual thousands. Naruto's chakra control was off the hinges as he couldn't mold it right. Kiba stood there shaking with multiple cuts on his body. "Damn you," he said as he tried to move but couldn't. He could barely stand, and the prompter realized this. The subtle muscle twitch and the aches from moving were obvious on the Inuzuka's face. "Winner, don't you dare stop this match," Kiba yelled out. "Kiba, with all due respect, you're finished here. There's nothing more you can do. If you continue, then I'll have to knock you out," Naruto said in a commanding tone. "Bring it then," Kiba said as he unwillingly took a stance. His body hurt, but he'd be damned if he finished this fight conscious. Naruto nodded and rushed forward Kiba. Kiba lifted his arm to block the oncoming strike as the Naruto clone stood back. "Damn it. I can't keep up like this. I've got to do some damage," as he launched a punch. The punch missed and Kiba began spinning. He spun into Naruto in point-blank range as Naruto exploded into smoke. A seal-less replacement, the prompter thought. That was advanced. Naruto stood in his clone spot as he got the memories from that attack. "That would have taken me out the fight," he realized. Kiba stopped spinning as he realized Naruto wasn't there. Suddenly, Naruto was before him, launching a powerful knee into Kiba's chin. Kiba was launched off his feet as Naruto pushed off the ground at immense speeds, shocking everyone there. He appeared over Kiba later, mid-flip, and brought a leg down on Kiba. The combo was effective as the light left Kiba's eyes as he hit, and he was taken out on a stretcher, completely unconscious. "Winner, Naruto," he said. Naruto made his way back up with his hands in his pockets. "Good fight, Kiba," he said out loud as Kiba was finally carted off. Next match, Neji Hyuga vs Hinata Hyuga. Hinata looked at Neji as Kiba's words came to her. "If you have to fight Neji or that sand ninja, forfeit immediately." She remembered. She made her way down the stairs as she took her place in front of Neji. "Hinata-sama, you know you cannot win. Why do you task yourself with this impossible burden?" he asked in a way of superiority. Hinata looked at him. I want to change myself. To prove that I can be a strong ninja," she stuttered. Neji activated his Byakugan as he looked at her. "These eyes of mine can see your weaknesses, Hinata. The way you hold your hand up to your lips and your arm below that, trying to form a barrier from keeping me out of your mind. The way your stance portrays weakness and your unwillingness to fight. The way your eyes glance to the ground then back to yourself. Trying to steal out the doubt that you can actually put up a good fight and maybe beat me. It's all revealed to me. The truth of the fact is, it is your fate to lose here, Hinata-sama." Neji finished. Suddenly a voice came out from the balcony. "Shut the hell up, will you? You sound like an idiot," the voice said as Neji glared at Naruto. "Who are you to tell someone what they can and can't be? You have no right to judge anyone, you branch family weakling." Naruto hit a chord. Neji became infuriated. He glared at Naruto but steeled his emotions as Hinata looked at Naruto shocked but then realized something. Naruto was right. Who the hell was Neji to tell her that she couldn't be a good ninja? Suddenly she began performing a series of hand seals as she activated her Byakugan. "Let's begin, brother," she said as she took a stance. She began running at Neji and launched a series of strikes which Neji countered. He began launching strikes as they continued on, exchanging blows and deflecting strikes. Chakra was coming off of them in small bursts and waves as they continued to battle. Neji launched a palm strike at Hinata's chest which she diverted and launched one at Neji's stomach. He hit her arm with a strike of his fingers and then launched another palm strike aimed at her stomach. Hinata took a chance and leaned into it, hitting him with her own. She then coughed up blood and fell to her knees as Neji grabbed her arm and held it up, showing holes on the arm. I disabled your gentle fist from the beginning. You never stood a chance. He said as he let go of her arm. He began to walk away. Prompter, it's over. She can no longer fight. Hinata stood up and looked at Neji. You're wrong, brother, she said before looking at Neji. Neji began to become upset. Just stand down, Hinata. You stand no chance against me. It is your fate to lose this match. You are not a competent shinobi and you have no chance against anyone of my caliber. You should just understand this and give up, he ordered. Hinata shook her head. No. I won't give up, because it's my ninja way, she exclaimed. How could you know anything about being a ninja? A main branch ninja who despises their own family. Neji let his emotions get to him. Hinata looked at Neji with sadness in her eyes. I don't hate you, Neji, if anything. I pity you. Neji glared at Hinata before moving at a burst of speed. Suddenly he was surrounded by all the Junins as they restrained him, and Naruto appeared in front of him before Kunai Kid with a claw of some sorts around his hand. The other Junin turned and looked in shock before Hinata opened her eyes and saw Kurenai in front of her. She looked around and saw Neji a hair's inch away from an iron claw that belonged to one Naruto Uzumaki. If you had taken that attack, your life would have been forfeit, he said calmly, releasing a mild amount of his killing intent. They looked at him confused. Since when did the dead last of the academy make threats? His entire character was off and it was unnerving. He had moved slightly slower than the Junins when he disappeared. The genin weren't even able of tracking his movements. It was obvious he was holding back. On the outside Naruto was okay. On the inside his chakra was burning. Using that damn Shushin variant hurt like hell with the curse mark. He had kept up a tough guy routine to not look weak, but he was regretting it. Winner. Neji Hyuga, he said as Hinata fell to the ground exhausted. Luckily Neji didn't hit her chest, but that stomach blow was strong. It hurt like hell and she'd still need medical treatment. Naruto helped Hinata up and she was escorted off by a medical ninja. He turned and looked at Neji. Pray we don't meet at the finals. I won't hold back against someone like you, he said as he walked up the stairs. The final match was now upon them as it was time for Gaara of the Sand and Rock Lee to face off. Rock Lee jumped off the railing, landing down right after Gaara used his sand Shushin to appear on the grounds. It was time for some blood. And Gaara was going to get it in buckets if there was anything he had to say about it. Let us have a most youthful and enjoyable match, he said as Gaara looked stoic as ever. Suddenly the match began and Lee rushed off. He launched a punch at Gaara as a wave of sand appeared and blocked it. Lee looked shocked as he launched a kick and the sand repeated the action. He tried multiple combos, even tried a few unconventional methods, but the sand would just stop his attack. Gaara looked at him and sent the sand in his direction. Lee jumped back and avoided the sand as he tried once more. This time he was hit by a wave of sand which slammed him up against a wall. He was able to regroup as the sand came once again and he appeared a small distance away from the original sand strike. He looked up to Guy, who looked at him shouting down to him. Lee, take him off, he said as Lee nodded. Right, he said as he disappeared to the symbol in the arena. He stood atop the hands that made the ram sign. He sat down, removing the weights as he held them up at arm's length. Ah, that is much better. Now I will be able to move much faster, he said as he let the weights go. The sudden impact of such a force hitting the earth caused the ground to crumble beneath it, creating two craters. A weight drop from that height had to weigh more than Lee himself. Lee took off, literally vanishing to many of the genin there. Hell, Kakashi had to activate his Sharingan just to keep up and see him. He began launching attacks as Gaara began to panic for the first time in years. He couldn't see him, but his sand could barely, couldn't keep up anymore. He took a blow to the head. The blow left a small cut as Tamari and Kankuro were in shock. Gaara was bleeding, and that wasn't a good thing. Lee appeared below Gaara and launched a kick. Gaara went into the air but wasn't floating. He was too heavy with that gourd. Lee launched a series of kicks into Gaara's gut and got him up high enough. He then wrapped Gaara in his bandages as they began their descent down. He slammed Gaara into the ground and leapt away, huffing and puffing. Gaara's body cracked away, revealing a hollow sand shell. The shell dissolved into sand as Gaara appeared elsewhere with an insane grin on his face. Yes. Make me feel alive, he said as sand rushed Lee's vulnerable form. Waves after wave of sand landed into Lee as he was smashed against the wall. Lee rose once again as he took his stance. Another wave of sand got to him and he dodged it with incredibly new vigor. Suddenly he started moving faster and dodging. Then Lee got distance as he crossed his arms. Gate of pain. Open, he said as he opened the first gate. Gate of healing. Open. He continued. He went up to the fourth gate as his skin turned red. He shot off at amazing speeds and launched Gaara into the air. The shockwave from the kick shattered the arena. He appeared behind Gaara, launching him into the corner of the arena, but appeared before him, knocking him the opposite way before bouncing him at fast speeds. He then appeared above Gaara as he opened the fifth gate and launched a powerful punch into Gaara's stomach. His bandages wrapped around Gaara as he pulled him in for an amazing punch, kick duo, causing him to hit the ground and form a crater. Lee rolled onto the ground, barely able to move. Gaara began to lift his arm as sand inched towards Gaara. Seeing that Lee couldn't move, Naruto broke Guy out of his shock and amaze for his student. "You should help him. Call the match," Naruto said, alarmed. Guy disappeared and disrupted the sand as he took a defensive position over Lee. "Lee is disqualified. Winner Sabaku no Gaara," he said as Guy picked Lee up. "Why did you stop the match, Guy-sensei?" Lee asked. Inside he knew he lost, but he was going to go out a ninja. "Because I didn't want to lose a precious student," he said as he looked at Lee with tears in his eyes. "I am so proud of you, Lee. So very proud," he said as he hugged Lee. "Would all the winners of the previous matches please make your way down?" he said as they appeared one by one. He told them the date for the next match would be in 1 month. They had the time to train and develop a strategy against their opponents, and they all got the idea. He held up a box with numbers and had them each draw one. After all was said, they drew up the brackets for the tournament. Neji Hyuga was facing Naruto Uzumaki first round, and boy was he not happy. He had his arms crossed against his body as he looked at the blonde enigma and his stance. The blonde had finally revealed his new outfit to the public and even included the sleeveless coat with the outfit. His headband's cloth flowed in the wind, as did his coat, as he looked at the Hyuga right back. "Give up," Neji began. "There's no way you'll ever beat me. Your fate is to lose here and now," Neji finished as he closed his eyes smugly. "Don't underestimate your opponent's Hyuga," Naruto said as he finally removed his hands from his pockets. He was holding something in his hand as he pointed at the Hyuga. "Or you might end up dead one of these days," he finished. People were shocked that the young man had threatened a Konoha ninja. A Hyuga nonetheless. Neji kept his emotions under control as he looked at the genin, opening his eyes once more. "Prompter," Neji commanded. "Start the match," he said as he slipped into his Jiyuken stance. "First match. Neji Hyuga vs Naruto Uzumaki. Begin," he said as he waved his hand and jumped back. Naruto launched his other hand forward as he released a large gust of wind from his palms. Neji, caught off guard by the long-distance attack, braced himself for impact as he was lifted from the ground. Naruto utilized his speed and ran to the other side of the arena as he began to throw what was in his hand. He threw the sphere at Neji from the distance and Neji struck it with a kunai. It exploded in the air, releasing a purple cloud that Naruto then used another wind technique and blew the gas over to Neji. "Poison," Neji thought as he backed away from the cloud and moved himself away from it. Naruto, as if reading the crowd's mind, answered the question everyone was dying to know. "It's not fatal. Just a harmless knockout gas," he said as a bird flew into the gas cloud and fell to the ground out cold. Naruto formed a hand seal and 3 cage bunshin popped into existence. "Scatter," he said, and the bunshin took off to different locations. "You should know better than to try and use those clones against me. I can see them and know where they are. It'll be child's play to take them." He was interrupted as he moved his head to the side, avoiding a kunai. The clone that threw it called out. "Shut up, will you?" it said while watching Neji. "We're not here to fight. Just simply observe," the clone finished. This was a psychological ploy. Not only would he not be able to believe the clone, because at the time it was an enemy, simply ignoring it could prove hazardous to his health. They were good distractions as the real Naruto was already upon him in a strange stance. His left leg was forward as his right leg was bracing him as he slid in front of Neji. His left and right hands were in claw-like shapes as if he would carve the flesh from Neji's body if he could. His left was slightly extended as his right slightly hung by his side, ready to strike at an instance. Don't worry about them, Naruto said, releasing a barrage of strikes. You have your own problems to deal with. He finished as him and Neji began to exchange blows. Neji launched a straight jab with his fingers towards Naruto's chest as Naruto used his claw-like hands to grab the wrist and twisted. This caused Neji to go with the movements as Naruto stepped forward into the Hyuga's guard, delivering a devastatingly fast strike to the Hyuga's gut. Neji doubled over as Naruto rose a leg, dropping a powerful heel into the connection of Naruto's shoulders. This dropped Neji like a sack of potatoes as Naruto released his wrist and went for another strike. Neji was being overwhelmed quickly. He had fought Lee before, so he was used to fast taijutsu, but this was ridiculous. He was being beaten worse than when he challenged Guy to a match on the first day. The only difference between this and that was that Naruto wasn't holding back. Each blow struck accurately as Neji bounced off the ground after the heel and coughed up a little bit of spit and blood. When Naruto let go, he saw another blur coming towards his face as he quickly rolled backwards and jumped to his feet. He was breathing a little bit heavily as he saw Naruto's leg extended. I call it the Kitsune Ken, Stage 1. Naruto replied. It's a taijutsu style that utilizes grappling moves and flexibility to strike at the opponent and cause them to end up in vulnerable situations. He finished explaining. Naruto's stance shifted a little lightly as the chakra coming off him could be felt. This is Stage 2, he said as he swiped with his hands and a gust of wind cut into Neji's body. Gah, Neji said as blood came from his chest. It was a shallow cut and not too deep, but from that distance it was an amazing feat by the Uzumaki. I can't afford to be hit by that at close range. It'd kill me, Neji thought to himself. Neji decided to get serious and stop talking. No mind games were going to get him out of this situation. He knew when he had a challenge before him. Naruto rushed forward as Neji dodged each strike. Naruto had to sacrifice his speed for chakra control, and the Stage 2 of the style was easy to avoid, but that didn't make it a weakness. The easiness to avoid it was only a bonus as it allowed Naruto to set up different combinations. As Neji dodged a strike by Naruto, Naruto suddenly ducked down and swept his legs and continued spinning while jumping into the air and began to fall upon Neji with his elbow ready to plunge into the young boy's gut. Neji rolled on the ground at the last minute, hopping up as Naruto's elbow hit into the ground, and caused a small crater as Naruto kick jumped back up. Naruto dusted himself off as he closed his eyes. He then smirked. I got everything I need here, Naruto said, confusing Neji. What do you mean Uzumaki? Neji asked rudely. Naruto pointed at the clones that were supposed to be there. Neji flared his Byakugan after noticing they were gone, but Naruto interrupted him. Don't worry, I dispelled them already, he explained. Neji wasn't only a genius in name for his skills, but he also had a sharp mind. But even he was confused by what the blonde enigma was talking about. What are you going on about? Neji asked once more. I now know everything I need to about your fighting style, Naruto replied as he shifted his stance into a more relaxed stance. He began to bounce on his toes as he had his right hand at his waist, fingers slightly gripped but still relaxed as his left arm was in front of his fist in the same fashion. Naruto's feet hit the ground and he was off, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. Neji tried to dodge but was completely left in the dust by Naruto's speed. Each time Neji tried to dodge, Naruto made him pay for it with a haymaker to his intended dodging locations. Since Neji was a Hyuga, close range was his forte. Not saying that all Hyugas don't have any long-range skills, it was a well-known fact that many of the genin Hyugas didn't. Neji may be a genius, but he specialized in close range. Getting beat at his speciality at this point was game over. Blow after blow rained upon Neji as he was helpless to react to them. Naruto lifted his knee, slamming it into Neji as he jumped up, bringing his other knee into Neji's chin, jerking Neji upright instantly. Neji's eyes went white before Naruto spun quickly in the air and delivered a powerful kick to Neji's jaw, sending him spinning and flying towards the ground. As Naruto landed, he placed both his hands down, then after observing Neji for a moment placed his hands in his pockets and walked away. Neji was out cold. The prompter went to check on Neji and checked for a pulse. It was there, but faintly. Naruto almost beat the kid to death. Those blows of his were well placed. If Naruto wanted to go for vitals, he could have in an instant. That boy is dangerous, Genma thought to himself. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. A roar of applause erupted in the stadium as Naruto walked off the stage. Too easy, Naruto replied while they hoisted Neji away on the cart. Next match, Sakura Haruno vs Sabaku no Tamari. Please make your way towards the stadium, Genma announced as Sakura made her way down. As Naruto walked past, Sakura looked at him. Naruto faintly smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. Just don't let her use that fan and you'll be fine, Naruto said. Go get her, Naruto finished as Sakura smiled and walked out. Tamari looked at the girl in front of her and laughed. This weak little girl is going to be my opponent. She looks like a starved kitten. You honestly don't think you're a match for me, do you? Tamari taunted. Sakura's brow flinched for a moment as she snarled. What did you say, you overgrown cow? Sakura screamed out. Tamari winced from the insult then became enraged. That's it, you pink harpy, you're dead, she said as she reached for her fan. Sakura started hand seals as Genma quickly started the match and moved the hell back. As Tamari began to swing her fan, Sakura had already finished her hand signs. Once the fan was swung, the gust from the wind obliterated the spot where Sakura was. Sakura's body laid on the ground as Tamari looked over it. TCH. Too easy, she said as she felt a tickle in the back of her mind. Genjutsu, she said as she bit down hard onto her cheek to cause enough pain to dispel the genjutsu without anyone knowing. Outside the genjutsu, everyone was wondering why Tamari was standing still and Sakura was reaching for a kunai. She checked her opponent's eyes and saw them faintly following her. She already dispelled the genjutsu, Sakura thought in her mind. Tamari was a well-trained shinobi, but Sakura was well-trained on genjutsu over the month. She took to genjutsu like a fish took to water. Sakura removed the kunai from her pouch and threw it at Tamari. The kunai had a paper tag attached to it. It wasn't a timed one but one that could go off by hand seal. She then formed a few hand seals as the kunai multiplied. Tamari stopped playing coy and swung her fan for real this time. By the time the gust of wind had hit the arena, Sakura had switched positions and was hiding behind trees. Tamari was not impressed. The kunai was blown away as it landed near the prompter, who immediately moved away from said kunai. Nice try, you bitch, but I have this match in the bag, Tamari bragged. She was still sore about that cow comment. Sakura removed a pouch and tied it to a kunai. She'd have to throw this pretty hard to get it to rise above the right spot. But first she had to make Tamari move. Sakura formed a few hand signs as an illusionary version of her came into existence. The illusionary version of her made its way out from behind the tree and began to run at Tamari. Tamari looked at the girl's feet and saw that it wasn't disturbing the earth. Either she was very skilled at the art of covering one's tracks, or it was an illusion. Knowing she was dealing with a genjutsu user, she chose the genjutsu. She didn't make a move as the clone removed a kunai and threw it at Tamari. Tamari smirked as the kunai passed her cheek before a thin line of blood came from her cheek and she felt a twinge of pain. That should have been possible. Sakura was watching from the tree and was syncing up the clone's movements with her own and was using ninja tools to do it. She needed to position Tamari near that kunai. And she was going to get it done. Sakura threw shuriken and kunai and was even manipulating them with wires to get the trajectory down and everything. Tamari, getting fed up with it all, released a powerful gale disrupting the illusionary clone's appearance before it finally dispelled. Come out, you cowardly bitch, Tamari screamed in rage. She was being toyed with by some adolescent shinobi wannabe and she was not taking it lightly. Sakura jumped down from the tree and began running through a few hand signs. When nothing happened, Tamari thought that maybe she was bluffing, but then Sakura pointed to the sky. She was breathing heavily and was about to fall over. Out of the sky, a giant fireball was descending upon the arena. Tamari was scared shitless. That shouldn't even be possible, she said out loud as she looked back at Sakura. Everyone looked into the sky and was confused at what Tamari was seeing. Tamari had forgotten all rationality until she felt that tingle in the back of her mind again. Another genjutsu, she said as she released it again. Sakura quit her acting and removed a kunai with a pouch on it. Tamari swung her blade forward and launched the wind at the kunai. The pouch bursted open and thousands of little bits of paper with writing on them fell as Sakura began to hold her hands together. Tamari began to swing her fan once more, but realized her location. She looked to her side and sure enough, there was the kunai with the paper tag. It was also surrounded by smaller pieces of paper. Tamari was about to swing when Sakura called out to her. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," she said as she nodded towards the paper. Tamari got a closer look at it and was pissed. "You whore," Tamari said through clenched teeth. On each piece of paper was a modified explosive tag seal. These seals were dangerous in their own right because one could cause massive damage. The thousands this girl had in the arena would blow them all sky high. "You wouldn't," she said as he prepared to swing. Sakura's chakra flared as she showed that she was willing to go through. "Surrender, or we both end here," she said. Tamari wasn't liking this one bit. She lowered her fan and looked at Sakura with rage in her eyes. "I surrender," she finished as Genma announced Sakura the winner. Sakura detonated the tags and small confetti fell out the tags. "Gotcha," she said as she laughed all the way back to the stands. If Tamari was angry before, she was absolutely livid. Tamari slammed her fan on the ground, causing a huge crater as she stumped off the stage. Next match. Sasuke Uchiha vs Sabaku no Gaara. Genma said, "Please make your way down to the arena floors at this moment," he announced as Gaara walked down the halls. Sakura looked at the arena from the stands as she wondered where Sasuke was. Gaara only wanted to spill some Uchiha blood as he deemed the young man a challenge. Gaara stood in the arena before he pulsed his chakra and felt something. "Uchiha, come out here. Face me," he said while looking at the top of the arena at the very top of the crowd. A young man was standing on top of the arena looking down at Gaara. "Sure," he yelled out loud enough for everyone to hear as they looked up at him. "I guess we could play for a little while," he said before he appeared in the middle of the arena with a whirlwind of leaves appearing around him. As they fell to the ground they revealed Sasuke Uchiha, his Sharingan already blazing alive with 3 tomo in their eyes. "Just keep in mind I like to play rough," he said as he placed one hand in front of him as his arm bent at an angle. The other arm was placed behind his back as he was standing straight up. "Let's see what you've got. Sabaku no Gaara," he finished as Gaara smiled an eerie smile. "This will be fun, Uchiha." That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.